Bang! As the door swung open, Chunxing once again finished his work. Can't take it anymore, I'm exhausted. That damn boss is squeezing me dry again. Chunxing clenched his fists and then slowly relaxed them. Forget it, just grit my teeth and hold on a bit longer. Once I get my paycheck next month, I definitely won't work for him again. Chunxing dragged his weary legs and slowly moved to the bedside. Thud, he buried his face in the quilt, enjoying a moment of comfort. Seriously, when will these days come to an end? Chunxing, a double non-university student, had been working in a heartless factory since graduation. Due to deep psychological trauma caused by arguments and conflicts with his parents, as well as his disappointment in himself, Chunxing decided to numb himself and live away from his parents. The way he chose to relax was what he considered the luckiest thing, watching the entire series of My Little Pony. He was immersed in this beautiful world and loved it so much that he wished he could also live in Equestria, finding his interests and future in that utopian world. How could such a world exist? Chunxing sighed, deciding not to dwell on these complicated matters and instead focus his energy on the first season of My Little Pony. He had already watched it twice and now decided to watch it again. Every time I watch the first season, I feel like Nightmare Moon is way too weak and she seems so silly. Chunxing finished watching the first 2 episodes again and couldn't help but lament. He glanced at the clock. Oh my, is it already this late? I should hurry up and sleep, or I won't be able to get up tomorrow and will be scolded by that damn heartless boss. Chunxing struggled to get out of bed, quickly washed up, and collapsed back on the bed, falling asleep. A dark, blurry figure desperately grasped the edge of a vortex, unwilling to be defeated so easily. Ha ha ha! Xingxuan, I curse you. I curse all of Equestria. You will be defeated by darkness, and you will all ultimately fail, ha? Amidst the laughter, the vortex finally disappeared under Xingxuan's furious gaze. Damn it! Xingxuan observed a wisp of black aura slowly seeping from the surrounding magic, angrily muttering. You don't have to worry so much, Xingxuan. You have already banished him, a white light orb said beside Xingxuan's ear. Sigh. The forces of light and darkness in this world are always evenly matched. The curse he cast before being banished will turn into a poison of time, slowly permeating this world until light and darkness are balanced again. Hope that day comes slowly. We must be prepared in advance, and I hope your successor can have the power to fight against darkness. The white light orb said to Xingxi. As dawn arrived, a magic circle appeared beneath Chunxing's bed, and with a flash of light, the soft bed was now empty. May you save our world. Sorry, child, truly sorry for making you bear all of this. Oh well. A wolf's howl startled the sleeping Chunxing awake. Chunxing wanted to stretch, but something felt strange. Why does it feel a bit strange? Why is my body so furry? Why do my hands feel off? Chunxing tried to stretch his hands and feet, but the nerves sent back a responsive no. Struggling, Chunxing opened his eyes to confirm what had happened, and then he saw a furry hoof swaying in front of him. Oh! Chunxing's eyes widened as he shouted, trying to move his body away from the hoof, until he backed against a tree. He stopped moving, then took a deep breath, looking at the completely different scene in front of him. Chunxing looked around, as if his brain was trying to find a hint of familiarity in the forest before him, but he failed. Struggling, Chunxing used his hooves to feel himself. As he brushed his hooves over his fur, he felt quite good. Then he rubbed his head and felt a hard, sharp horn standing on his forehead. Oh, a unicorn! I can't believe I'm a unicorn. First of all, this place was definitely not Earth, and it was very likely that he had crossed over and transformed into a unicorn. Secondly, this was a forest, and around him, all he could see were bushes and trees that seemed to stretch endlessly. Given that he was a unicorn, Chunxing came to the obvious conclusion that he had crossed into the world of My Little Pony and appeared in the Everfree Forest. Chunxing stroked his chin, analyzing his situation. It seems that I have crossed over. The most important thing now is to quickly escape from this hellish forest. Chunxing immediately stood up, but due to an awkward twist, he walked unsteadily and then fell to the ground. Looks like I need to start by learning how to walk. Chunxing got up again and mentally reminded himself which hoof to step with. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. As he took a few steps while chanting the mantra, he finally stopped falling, although he still walked strangely like a comedic actor stumbling along. The more he walked, the smoother it became, and the happier he felt because he had reached a place he had only dreamed of. He breathed in deeply, savoring the scent of the trees and grass. Everything is great, and I'm a unicorn. Come on, what boy can go through life without being a unicorn at least once? Although he wanted to use magic immediately, he realized that he didn't know how to use magic right. Now that Chunxing continued to walk, the fear of being a newcomer faded away, and the excitement of arriving in My Little Pony took over as he jogged forward. He sensed that an important thing was being overlooked by his mind, but he couldn't quite remember it at the moment. Strange. What is it that my subconscious wants me to pay attention to? Oh, with a wolf's howl, he suddenly remembered what had happened. It was the wolf's howl that woke me up. Chunxing's fur stood on end as he immediately dashed in the opposite direction of the sound, his mind racing. No, how am I going to escape from him? I can't outrun them. As the sound of wood colliding grew closer, Chunxing gradually sensed the scent of death. Help! Is there any pony that can save me? Knowing he couldn't outrun them, Chunxing's mind began to panic, and he instinctively took some self-rescue actions. Thanks to the long heads of ponies, Chunxing could see the wooden wolf behind him, lying in wait to ambush any passing pony, and now, a seemingly dazed target presented. Itself, this was a godsend opportunity for him. Chunxing urgently slammed to a stop, letting his instincts take over. He planted his front hooves on the ground, pulled his hind hooves in, and kicked backwards with all his might. It proved that sometimes following one's instincts was somewhat useful. The wooden wolf following Chunxing was kicked to pieces. Although it didn't die, it was no longer a threat for now. Taking a deep breath, Chunxing exhaled slowly and repeated this twice, feeling much better. Just as he wanted to look for any landmarks to identify where he was, he froze. Around him, 4 or 5 wooden wolves were glaring at him. He knew he had to escape, but he didn't know how to get away. He felt the heavy hooves beneath him, sensing his existence as a pony in this world. All right, I won't be taken down by you. Charge! Chunxing gritted his teeth and charged at one of the wooden spirit wolves, using all his strength to leap up and stomp its foolish head into the ground. Then he dashed forward in that direction. That he just wanted to survive. What was wrong with that? Chunxing ran desperately, only able to catch glimpses of the bright moonlight through the high tree's leaves. He could only run towards the moonlight. There was no other way. First-person perspective. Run. Only run. I can only keep running. I don't know what I can do. I don't know how to use magic. I might be the worst magician on the Little Maria continent right now, right? I slightly lifted my head, and the moonlight fell on my furry face, entering my eyes. What beautiful weather. As I ran, I gradually felt my strength waning, and the wooden spirit wolves behind me had already regarded me as fish on a chopping board. I could only run until... Ow, it hurts! It hurts! It hurts! It hurts! Chunxing instinctively shouted, but it didn't alleviate his pain. It only added to his fear. Were they really that powerful in the animation? Chunxing looked towards the moonlight and noticed a dilapidated castle not far from him, bathed in moonlight. What a pity did I still not make it. Chunxing couldn't gauge the strength of the wooden spirit wolves anymore. As they surrounded him, his mind was filled only with pain, countless pains coming from the 4 hooves and his body. Now, Chunxing no longer anticipated this magical continent. He just wanted to lose consciousness quickly, or else he might really break down. The last scene he remembered was a wooden spirit wolf lunging at his face, followed by void. Child, you still have your mission to complete. Please do not give up. The light is with you. Am I in heaven now? Or did I cross over again? I really can't take it anymore. Why can others cross over and be invincible, while I'm so unlucky, not even able to use magic? It seems I might be the worst unicorn pony in Little Maria. Huh. Why do I feel like I'm thinking? Am I not dead? Did someone just speak to me? Strange. Chunxing's head throbbed with pain. The memory of being bitten felt like a sharp sword, precisely stabbing at him, leaving his mind in chaos. No matter the situation, Chunxing suddenly stood up and bolted towards the moonlight. He knew that was the direction of life. And no matter how exhausted or fatigued he felt, he kept running. Only running could allow him to survive. A familiar sound reached Chunxing's ears again, making him even less daring to slow down. Chunxing exerted the last burst of energy from his 1,000-meter test, desperately sprinting towards the moonlight. He knew this was his path to survival. Aha! Chunxing gasped for breath. He didn't know how long he had been running, nor if there were wooden spirit wolves chasing him from behind. He had only one goal now, to reach the twin sisters' castle at any cost. Suddenly, he heard the sound of running behind him. They're coming. They've appeared. He saw the castle bathed in moonlight, quietly standing in the forest once again. Chunxing began his final sprint, watching as the twin sisters' castle grew larger, while the sounds of the wooden spirit wolves running grew closer. With adrenaline surging, Chunxing forgot the sounds of the wind and the wolves chasing him, forgot the sound of his own breathing, his eyes fixated solely on the castle's entrance. Almost there, almost there. Chunxing, faster, faster. A sharp pain from a wound pulled Chunxing back to reality. He felt a severe pain in his back, and his hoof speed slightly decreased. But Chunxing dared not stop. He didn't want to experience being bitten and gnawed again. That had been the most terrifying experience of his life. Even the black hard boss seemed kind in comparison. 50 meters away from the castle, the wooden spirit wolves stopped in unison, Perhaps the dilapidated castle still held some magical power that protected it. But Qingxing couldn't think so much anymore. He made a final push, crashing through the castle gates. Now, pain shot through his back and shoulders, sending signals of agony to his brain, tormenting his nerves. Ha! Qingxing breathed heavily, feeling alive. Although it hurt a lot, Qingxing knew it was all worth it. He slowly walked to a large floor-to-ceiling window, used his muzzle to tear down a large piece of curtain fabric, and with his hooves and mouth tore it into strips. Then he wrapped them around his back and tied a knot, hastily treating his wounds. Qingxing slowly walked down the corridor and saw rows of rooms, randomly opening one. It's a small bedroom. In front of the window was a small desk, a dusty bed, and a row of bookshelves. Simple, but nice. Qingxing lay on the bed, not caring about anything else. He was in a state of mental exhaustion. So sleepy, I think I'll take a nap first. As Qingxing's eyelids slowly closed, he finally fell asleep, alive. Chapter 2: Morningstar's escape from the sisters' castle to continue studies in Ponyville. Warm, comfortable, beautiful, and painful. Morningstar slowly opened his eyes, feeling the sun rising from Princess Celestia. Bathed in golden light, he woke up due to the pain from his wounds. He first looked at the injuries on his back. He had not paid much attention yesterday due to exhaustion, and today he noticed 2 deep scars on his back, with a considerable amount of dried, dark blood stuck to the blanket. Sigh. It seems that escaping yesterday was quite fortunate. I don't even know if I can survive in this world now. Morningstar got out of bed. His right shoulder still hurt from the door collision yesterday. He slowly searched around the sisters' castle for some minty leaves, then clumsily crushed them with his hooves and applied them to a new strip of cloth, which he then tied around his body. Ouch! Morningstar couldn't help but grimace. This isn't a long-term solution. I remember there should be a library in the castle. I should learn how to use some simple magic first, and then quickly go to Ponyville for treatment. Otherwise, I could get infected, and that would be troublesome. Morningstar rummaged through the grass near the castle and found some small red berries, biting into one. So sour. Despite the sourness, Morningstar forced himself to eat 5 or 6 of the small berries and picked a dozen more to wrap in cloth. Where is it? Where is the library? Morningstar started from a long row of rooms in the right corridor, passing through them one by one. The first was the kitchen, which looked quite large but was covered in dust, indicating it hadn't been used in a long time. The second room was a small living room with a low table and 4 small stools, very quiet, as if they were shy, all covered with a thick layer of dust to hide their shyness. However, Morningstar didn't have the mood to explore carefully. He quickly approached the next room, roughly kicked the door open, and if it wasn't the library, he didn't care. After opening about 6 or 7 rooms, bang! Morningstar looked up and saw a sign on each bookshelf. Let me see. History area, literature area, nursing area. Oh, magic area. Morningstar searched each one and finally found the magic area bookshelf. Let's see. Magic analysis, introductory magic, elementary magic, advanced magic. Great. Morningstar excitedly jumped up, finally able to start his first lesson in magic. I'll take these few books for now. He blew off the thick dust from the magic books, coughing several times in the process, and finally managed to pick up the introductory magic and elementary magic books with his mouth. Thank goodness these weren't on the top. Otherwise, it would have been hard to get them. Morningstar wrapped the 2 books in cloth and headed back to the room he slept in yesterday, placing the books on the table and carefully closing the door. Now, this small room temporarily belonged to Morningstar. He exhaled, pulled the chair back, sat down, and awkwardly opened the first page of the introductory magic book with his front hooves. This book is suitable for young unicorns to quickly master basic magic. Oh, wonderful. Morningstar excitedly turned to the next page. Step 1 describes how to use magic. As we all know, in Ponyville, magic is everywhere. Whether it's flying Pegasi or earth ponies on land, they all possess magical powers, and unicorns even more so. The basis of using magic is to slowly absorb the magical particles from the surrounding air into one's body and manipulate the magical particles within the body to gather at the horn. Then establish a connection between the object and the horn's magical particles. This achieves the simplest application of unicorn magic, telekinesis. I have to say, although Morningstar is not a person who loves reading, he is now deeply immersed in a new knowledge building due to his infinite yearning for magic, greedily acquiring this precious knowledge. The sun rising from Princess Celestia slowly moved over Morningstar's head, shifting towards the horizon. A ray of sunset illuminated the desk in the room, reminding Morningstar that time had passed. As he finished reading the first introductory magic book, he couldn't wait to give himself a practical application homework. He first closed his eyes, feeling the magical particles in the air. In Morningstar's dark vision, it seemed that some small light points appeared. He carefully, as if inhaling, slowly drew these light points into his body. When his body was almost filled with these light points, Morningstar opened his eyes, staring at the still unopened elementary magic book, then feeling the presence of magical particles within him. It was a magical feeling. Although he could sense the existence of magical particles, they did not have any adverse effects on Morningstar, just like a human wearing clothes and admiring themselves in the mirror. Then Morningstar gradually moved these magical particles to his horn. Then a miracle happened. He saw rippling blue light emanating from around the book. And under Morningstar's conscious manipulation, it slowly rose and floated towards him. When the book floated in front of his eyes, he experimented with the page-turning function. Morningstar first imagined the action of turning the pages in his mind, and then the book magically opened by itself, flipping through the pages one by one. Hooray! I really succeeded. I'm amazing. Morningstar joyfully bounced around in the small room of the sisters' castle, then lost his balance and fell to the ground. At this moment, Morningstar once again handed over the control of his body to his brain, while his stomach had already complained to his brain countless times about its suffering. In short, he hadn't eaten anything all day, and he was now extremely hungry. Morningstar hurriedly used magic to open the cloth bag he had thrown aside, then floated the fruits in front of his eyes and took a bite. Crisp and refreshing, with a bit of sourness. Overall, it's really good. The sun rose and set and rose again. At night, Morningstar gathered the magical particles at his horn to use as a lamp. As Princess Celestia controlled the sun and moon to alternate repeatedly 5 times, Morningstar finally finished reading these 3 books. Now he felt incredibly powerful. The elementary magic taught how to use magical particles to release beams of light and create small shields or spells like ignition. The advanced magic further explained how to use magical particles more efficiently and enhance attack or defense magic with more magical particles, and through meditation, achieve spatial mobility magic by connecting the space between the horn and the destination. While magic analysis enhanced one's magical talent from the perspective of increasing the capacity for magical particles in the body. Among them, Morningstar found the most useful theory to be the compression and rearrangement of magical particles, where magical particles could be arranged and combined to compress them, allowing the body to hold more particles. Compressing magical particles is also essential for high-level magic, because high-level magic requires a vast number of magical particles. A pony cannot absorb enough just by directly taking in magical particles. Moreover, the faster the flow rate of magical particles, the higher the instantaneous output. But the consumption is also greater. Now Morningstar possessed enough knowledge. Strangely, he felt that ever since he arrived in the world of My Little Pony, his memory had improved, and he no longer had nearsightedness. After a few days, he had compressed all the magical particles in his body. Morningstar now felt incredibly powerful, capable of defeating the wooden forest wolves he had encountered before. Of course, his top priority now was to quickly find a pony to ask what time it was. Morningstar had an ominous premonition. He felt that something sinister might be happening in this world. Morningstar quickly began flipping through the bottom layer of the bookshelf, rapidly inputting them into his brain and categorizing them alphabetically. The sun diligently rose and fell 5 times, and during this time, if he got hungry, Morningstar would pick a few fruits from outside the window or simply use magic to pluck some leaves from a bush to eat. Very astringent, rough, and hard to eat. It seemed that unripe fruits could indeed only fill his stomach. In the end, he finished reading the bookshelf, and now he had mastered the basic attack methods. As for more magical applications and the use of those dark magic particles, he decided to plan for them after reaching Ponyville, because he was tired of eating grass and fruits every day. Now his brain refused to let him access that information, so he had no choice but to hurry to Ponyville to find a job, preferably one that provided food and shelter and allowed ample time for reading. Of course, this was unlikely to be that convenient, right? Morningstar urgently needed to use attack magic and do some homework by tearing those annoying wood wolves to pieces to take revenge for the previous encounter. Although he remembered that wood wolves in the endless forest were undead, this would still allow Morningstar to vent his anger. After Morningstar walked out of the 2 sisters' castle for the last time, he closed the door properly and set off on his journey to Ponyville. Of course, the first step was for Morningstar to convert theory into practice. He found a small tree next to the 2 sisters' castle, imagined it as a wood wolf, and aimed his horn at the tree. As Morningstar felt the magic particles gathering in his horn, he visualized the shape of the beam. The horn crackled, and suddenly, a blue beam shot forward. Morningstar felt a tremendous force acting on the horn, so he lowered his center of gravity and pushed hard with his hind hooves to counteract the significant recoil. You ask what happened to the tree? Well, it snapped in half. Morningstar looked at the fallen tree with satisfaction, knowing that a wood wolf would definitely be shattered in one hit. Morningstar made another hypothesis, then tried to query his brain, but his brain refused to cooperate. Fine, he decided to hurry to Ponyville first. Next, Morningstar ran a few steps forward, contemplating the direction of Ponyville relative to the two sisters' castle. Based on his memories of watching My Little Pony for so many years, Morningstar chose the northwest direction and quickly moved forward. As he walked, he heard the surrounding grass rustling, indicating that something was moving inside, ready to deliver a fatal blow to Morningstar at any moment. He lowered his body in advance, creating a protective shield around himself, while his horn was fully charged and ready to fire. Suddenly, responding to Morningstar, a howl echoed, and dozens of wood wolves sprang out from the surroundings, their eyes gleaming with greedy green light, fixated on Morningstar. He focused on a wood wolf he found the most annoying and decided to strike first. Well, it was better to attack first than to suffer later. He fired a beam at the wood wolf, and unsurprisingly, it was disintegrated. The other wood wolves lunged at him, their claws striking the shield and creating blue ripples. Morningstar felt the flow of magic particles quicken for a moment, and then he immediately adjusted the direction of his horn as one wood wolf after another was turned into wooden chunks, with the remaining few fleeing. It looks like they have some self-awareness. Otherwise, I would have wiped them all out. The core of the disintegrated wood wolf emitted a black light cluster, and Morningstar felt that this light cluster was more intense than the magic particles, and the magic it released must be more powerful. Although it didn't look like anything good, he still planned to try to absorb it. Morningstar believed that this light cluster was definitely something a villain would need. If he absorbed it, wouldn't the villain become weaker? And as I grow stronger, the villain weakens, and when the villain weakens, I can more confidently correct things when they go awry. As Morningstar felt the black light cluster, the sensation was very strange. It seemed to disappear as it entered his body, and he didn't know how to use it. Morningstar tried once again to access the data stored in his brain, but was rejected again. Horses are made of iron, and meals are steel. Skipping a meal makes one anxious, and the ancients do not deceive me. I can only wait until my brain allows me to access it. I still need to eat. After venting some frustration, Morningstar followed his memory toward Ponyville. Of course, this long road was also extraordinary. The endless forest was similar to what Morningstar had imagined, but there were many more enemies than he had anticipated. Whether they were tentacle monsters disguised as trees or the relentless wood wolves, there was no choice. Morningstar could only wrap himself in a shield and move quickly. Ha ha ha. Morningstar didn't know how far he had walked. He only knew he was almost exhausted, constantly absorbing magic particles and remaining vigilant against potential monsters around him. This feeling is not good at all. The rapid replenishment and consumption of magic power left Morningstar extremely fatigued, and he knew this couldn't go on forever. He had to get through the endless forest quickly. Morningstar kept running, and the almost unchanged environment around him was driving him crazy. He feared being mercilessly swallowed by this vast forest. Ah, help. Hee. Finally, someone. A horse. Don't be afraid. I'm here to save you, Morningstar said excitedly. He dashed through the bushes in front of him and discovered a gray-bodied Pegasus with a claw mark on its wings. In front of her, a wood wolf was preparing to attack the little Pegasus. Without thinking of anything else, Morningstar compressed his magic power and unleashed it toward the wood wolf, erupting a powerful beam that shattered the wood wolf into pieces. Ha ha, Morningstar gasped for breath. Are you okay? Morningstar was very excited now because this was the first pony he had encountered, but he was also very cautious, at least since childhood. He had not been very good at managing his expressions. In short, his face now looked quite fierce. Ah, the little Pegasus shook her limbs and wings, appearing more frightened than when she saw the wood wolf. Morningstar covered his face, feeling utterly speechless. He used magic to levitate himself and then faced her. As he looked into her eyes, he noticed they were actually misaligned. According to his memory, she should be Days. Okay, Days' weak voice echoed in Morningstar's ears. Her once beautiful mane was now matted with dry leaves and mud, showing that she had suffered greatly to evade the wood wolf's attack. Morningstar could feel Days' body trembling slightly, and the torn wound at the base of her wings was still oozing blood, glistening ominously in the sunset. This made the little pony shiver. Days stopped struggling, and Morningstar gently placed her on the ground, then took a deep breath, gathering a blue aura around his horn, and used a basic healing spell to temporarily stop the bleeding from her wings. Thank you. I came from Canterlot to deliver a message to Ponyville, but halfway there, I accidentally ran into something and fell into the endless forest. Luckily, you were here. You are a good horse. Thank you for saving me. A good horse? The endless forest under the sunset appeared increasingly eerie. Twisted branches rustled in the wind, and distant howls of unknown creatures echoed. It seemed as if they were about to swallow the two intruding ponies whole. Hello, Days, can you move now? If not, just lie on my back. and we need to quickly leave this dangerous place. Help me point the way. We need to set off immediately. Days attempted to lift her front hooves, but fell heavily again. Morningstar immediately used magic to lift her onto his back. When Daze's cold cheek touched the back of his neck, a long-lost sensation suddenly coursed through his heart. Aside from his parents, it had been a long time since he had been this close to another pony. Morningstar immediately ran in the direction she pointed, fearing any other accidents. As dusk deepened, Morningstar navigated through the dense forest, following Daze's intermittent guidance. Before the sun was about to set, neither Morningstar nor Daze encountered any major troubles. Aside from a few wood wolves that foolishly blocked their way to Ponyville, Morningstar ran all the way, finally bringing Little Dull to Ponyville just before nightfall. They arrived at the southern end of Ponyville, where Little Butterfly's wooden house stood at the edge of the forest like a gingerbread house from a fairy tale. Morningstar stumbled to the door of the small wooden house, and, after a moment of hesitation, knocked on the door with his muddy front hoof. Bang, bang, bang. Oh, coming right away, please wait a moment. A gentle voice came through the door, accompanied by the sound of porcelain clinking. When the door creaked open, Morningstar saw a pair of surprised black eyes. The light yellow Pegasus instinctively took a step back, her rabbit companion standing alert behind her. Ears perked up as if ready to confront Morningstar. As soon as Little Butterfly opened the door, she saw a unicorn with a pale complexion looking very tired, carrying Little Dull on his back, who was injured. Oh, are you all right? Morningstar couldn't waste time chatting, so he quickly asked, where's the nearest hospital? I need to get Little Dull to the hospital first. We can talk about everything else later. Little Butterfly understood the seriousness of the situation. After giving a few instructions to the animals behind her, she turned to Morningstar and said, all right, sir, please follow me. Little Butterfly quickly headed north, with Morningstar closely following her while carrying Little Dull. As Little Dull was pushed into the treatment room by the doctors, Morningstar knew his task was complete. Next, he needed to head to the library to learn more about magic. Morningstar first went with the doctor to another treatment room, where the nurses helped him remove the bandages, cleaned his wounds with alcohol, applied medication, and rewrapped them with fresh gauze, advising him to change the dressings every 2 to 3 days, and that he should heal in about a week. The doctor warned him, as it was rare to see a pony with such injuries, and he was concerned about the risk of infection. After Morningstar came out, he saw Little Butterfly waiting anxiously by the treatment room door, her hooves rubbing together nervously, her eyes looking very tense. When Little Butterfly met Morningstar's gaze, she quickly lowered her head, appearing shy, like a sensitive plant that curls up at the slightest movement. Hello, I'm Morningstar. I'm glad you brought me to the hospital. Morningstar sat down next to Little Butterfly to rest for a moment. Oh, hello, Morningstar, nice to meet you. I'm Little Butterfly. Oh, Morningstar, the mayor has been looking for a librarian, but because this place is a bit remote and close to the Everfree Forest, ever since the last librarian retired, the library has been maintained by the school volunteers. If you're applying for the job, I'm sure the mayor will be very happy. Okay. Thank you, Little Butterfly. Morningstar smiled, relaxed. It seemed he could combine earning money with learning. So, Little Butterfly, could you tell me where the mayor lives? I'm a newcomer who accidentally wandered into the Everfree Forest, so I might need to find a place to rest. Little Butterfly briefly described several landmark buildings, including the library, Mrs. Cake's Bakery, Rarity's Boutique, and Applejack's Apple Orchard. All right. Thank you, Little Butterfly. I'm sorry to take up so much of your time. You should go rest. I'll keep an eye on Little Dull. It's all right. Little Dull is my friend too. I should stay here and see if there's anything I can help with. Just then, the doctors pushed Little Dull out. Fortunately, after timely treatment, Little Dull's wings were fine now, and she just needed to rest for about a week. Little Dull lay on the bed, her wings wrapped in bandages. Thank you, sir. If it weren't for you, I might have had a serious problem. Little Dull reached out her hoof to hug Morningstar, who felt a bit awkward. Since leaving his parents, he had been working and didn't have many friends, only sending some living expenses to his parents each month and not communicating much with them. This direct physical contact felt strange to Morningstar, not that he disliked it, but it was just a bit uncomfortable. As Little Dull was wheeled into a room, Little Butterfly and Morningstar said their goodbyes and went their separate ways. Morningstar then planned to report to the mayor right away. He had already thought of a reason. He would say he was a pony from out of town who accidentally wandered into the Everfree Forest and happened to find Little Dull on her way to Ponyville to deliver a letter, and then rescued her. I hope the mayor won't dig too deep into it. See you next time. Morningstar trotted away, waving his hoof at Little Butterfly. He needed to hurry to the mayor, as it was already night. If he didn't go soon, he might end up sleeping on the streets like a stray pony. Perhaps all the ponies in Ponyville were kind-hearted. The mayor believed Morningstar's story without question and kept asking him how he was doing and if he needed to be hospitalized. Morningstar said the doctor told him he only needed to change his bandages and didn't need to stay in the hospital. Morningstar was amazed by the innocence of Ponyville. Of course, this saved him a lot of time explaining. But it made Morningstar, who was used to repression, feel uncomfortable. Or rather, he was afraid to adapt to these situations. He had buried his feelings in an endless abyss, so no matter what happened, he could say it was all expected. Thus, smoothly, Morningstar received the key from the mayor and officially became the librarian of Ponyville. Upon entering, Morningstar found the library in good condition, with a kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom all fully equipped. Not bad. This place is nice. Morningstar locked the door and successfully found the long unoccupied bedroom. He used magic to float the quilt, shook it out, and then lay down on the bed, which was soft and comfortable. As Morningstar drifted into dreamland, this bizarre day finally came to an end. Chapter 5. Hunger and Shyness. The first encounter with Pinkie Pie. The sun rose again, shining brightly as Celestia's light poured through the gaps in the window, gently falling on Morningstar's face. Morningstar had a strange dream. In the dream, light and darkness seemed to be two archenemies, fighting against each other in endless space. Whenever the power of light surged like a roaring tide, the world seemed to be subtly drawn toward the forces of darkness by an invisible power. Darkness, like a mysterious abyss, attracted those ponies who longed for power, granting them powerful magic to arm themselves and join the ranks against the light. And when the power of light weakened like a solitary candle flickering in a storm, it could miraculously bestow strength upon those noble-hearted ponies who dared to confront the dark forces, making them defenders of the light. In short, light and darkness had been battling on this Ponyville continent for countless years, and this struggle between light and darkness had persisted through countless seasons. But why was all this happening? Morningstar slowly opened his eyes. The soft bed gave him a comfortable feeling, and the warm sunlight enveloped him, making him feel incredibly pleasant. Everything was beautiful, but soon, a wave of hunger crashed over him, reminding him of the harsh reality. He clearly remembered that he hadn't eaten much yesterday, and now he was on the verge of collapsing from hunger. Morningstar knew he had to take action, otherwise, he might be the only pony in Ponyville to faint from hunger. Morningstar found a saddlebag left by the old librarian that he could carry on his back, grabbed a few coins he had advanced from the mayor, and dashed out the door toward the Ponyville restaurant. "Waiter, I'd like to place an order." Morningstar sat in a corner of the restaurant, raised his hoof, and said to the waiter who was wiping the table, "Excuse me, what do you recommend to eat?" Morningstar licked his dry lips and asked after pondering for a moment. In fact, he was so hungry at that moment that he wished he could rush into the kitchen and eat anything he saw, but in order not to appear too unruly, he had to suppress the impulse and try to make his behavior seem more normal. The waiter enthusiastically introduced, "Our restaurant's signature dish is the fried hay burger paired with oat milkshake. It tastes amazing. Of course, the apple pizza is also a must-try. We use fresh apples picked daily from Ponyville's orchards, and every guest who has tried it raves about its sweet flavor." Saying this, he handed over a menu. Although the waiter was actively promoting the restaurant's delicacies, Morningstar had no interest in listening. "I'll have these few," he said. At this point, he was already starving and couldn't care less about the waiter's introduction. His eyes quickly scanned the menu, and relying on his most primitive instincts, he randomly pointed to 4 or 5 dishes based on the pictures. "Please make them as soon as possible. Thank you. Here's a tip." The waiter took the tip with a beaming smile and hurried to the kitchen, bustling with the chef. It was evident that Morningstar was indeed extremely hungry. After eating grass and fruit every day, his brain was at a loss for what to do, so he could only rely on his primitive instincts. Once the dishes were served, he completely ignored his image and entered a wolfing down mode. Each dish was quickly devoured as soon as it hit the table. He had only one thought in his mind: to get the food into his stomach as quickly as possible. And that sense of satisfaction temporarily made him forget everything around him. Morningstar could only feel the satisfaction of food entering his stomach. Soon, the last dish was finished. Morningstar gradually came back to his senses. It was then that he noticed many ponies around him were curiously staring at him, and his face instantly turned red to the roots of his ears. He had never liked being the center of attention. He was used to blending into the crowd, being an ordinary existence like a drop of water in the ocean. Now, under the gaze of so many eyes, he felt incredibly embarrassed. So he quickly paid the bill and ran out as fast as he could. Before leaving, Morningstar asked the waiter when the market usually opened, then dashed out the door. As soon as Morningstar stepped outside, he bumped into a pink earth pony, which left him dizzy. How strange. There was clearly no pony in front of me just now. How did she appear? The pink pony seemed unbothered, bouncing up in a way that defied physics, then squinting her eyes to take a closer look at Morningstar. "You look really evil. Could you be the reincarnation of an ancient Dark Lord? Pinkie Pie said seriously. And do you know what you need to fight him? Pinkie Pie then teleported to his ear and whispered. Morningstar was a bit dazed at that moment. Is Pinkie Pie really an Earth pony? How did she teleport like a unicorn? What do you need? Morningstar wasn't sure what she meant, so he just went along with her words. Of course, a party. Morningstar watched as Pinkie Pie pulled out a confetti cannon from who knows where. And with a bang, colorful confetti instantly scattered everywhere. Morningstar felt puzzled and confused again. When watching My Little Pony, there was one pony he could never understand, Pinkie Pie. How did she manage to do those chaotic things? Of course, one could say it was for the sake of animation, but when Morningstar witnessed these things firsthand, he still felt that the animation was too conservative. In any case, Morningstar's brain decided to give up on thinking and just regarded these phenomena as traits of a special pony. Hey, hello, I'm Pinkamena Diane Pie, but you can just call me Pinkie Pie. Are you a new pony in Ponyville? I don't think I've seen you before. I know every pony living in Ponyville. They are all my friends. I want to be friends with you and throw you a welcome party. Okay. Pinkie Pie shook Morningstar's front hoof vigorously, making him dizzy again. Okay, Pinkie Pie, please stop shaking me. I'm getting dizzy. It was the first time Morningstar received such a warm welcome, and he didn't know how to respond, so he could only agree. After all, it was just a party, and it was a good opportunity to get to know the ponies in Ponyville, fulfilling his dream of making friends with them. Chapter 6. Learning Magic in Everyday Life. Taking care of little days? Reflecting on his time as a human, his life was filled with countless work obligations, and he spent every day in a rush. His relationships with colleagues were merely fleeting encounters, and deep down, he longed for true friends, but was always afraid of betrayal and harm, so he could only bury that desire deep within. Therefore, he could only place his hopes on the utopia of My Little Pony, where making friends with the ponies here was definitely an interesting endeavor. Morningstar found his job as a librarian quite comfortable. Hardly any ponies came to borrow books, and he was happy to sort the entire library slowly by himself. Pinkie Pie has been visiting me often these days. She said she wants to throw a party for you when I recover, Little Days said softly, a hint of shyness in her voice. It's okay, Little Days, just focus on getting better. Everything else is not important, Morningstar gently comforted her. He was that kind of person, or rather, pony. Although he appeared to keep his distance from other ponies, he truly hoped to have a heartfelt friend. Morningstar looked into Little Days' eyes and saw the issue with them again. When he first noticed the problem with her eyes, he thought about trying to use healing magic to fix them, but he realized that healing magic required not only magical knowledge, but also extensive medical knowledge. Healing magic requires the caster to construct a sound pony model in their mind and perform the surgery scientifically. Otherwise, the healing magic would be useless. Morningstar had underestimated magic, thinking that learning the casting methods and the components of magic would be enough to master it. The truth proved that extensive practice and a broad knowledge base were necessary for magical mastery. As of now, Morningstar had achieved at most a minor level of accomplishment. Stronger than an average unicorn, but if he encountered a challenge, it would be easy to fail. Moreover, he currently didn't know how to manipulate those dark magical particles. Morningstar felt that he had a natural attraction to these magical particles, which is why he could absorb them into his body. This might be related to his unique cutie mark. Morningstar's cutie mark was a mysterious black halo surrounded by a faint purple glow, resembling a mysterious nebula in the night sky or a black hole in the universe, devouring everything that attempted to pry into it. In the center of the halo were two equilateral triangles, one upright and one inverted, interwoven to form a magic circle that emitted a faint blue glow, mysterious and enchanting. When Morningstar first saw his cutie mark, he found it strange because he had no recollection of any pony in My Little Pony having a black cutie mark. He felt a bit confused, but upon seeing the cutie mark, he knew that his future magical talent would not be low. He had only been in the Ponyland continent for a little over 10 days and had already grasped magic to such a level. He firmly believed that with time, effort, and talent, he would achieve a high level of magical prowess and could even use powerful magic to overcome any obstacles ahead. Morningstar, just wanted to quietly learn magic from this continent and absorb all the rich magical knowledge it had to offer. Every time Xiao Dai saw Morningstar coming to visit her, her heart bloomed with joy. Her parents ran a small shop in Cantlot and were busy every day. As soon as they learned that Xiao Dai had an accident, they rushed over to take care of her for an entire day. It wasn't until Xiao Dai repeatedly told her parents that she could be discharged in about a week that they felt relieved. Coincidentally, when Morningstar first visited Xiao Dai, he also met her parents. Morningstar didn't sense anything unusual. He was already over 30 and didn't have any special feelings for these little ponies. To him, they were just innocent children. Morningstar thought that since he had nothing else to do, he might as well help out a bit. That day, Morningstar got up as usual, tidied his bed, and hastily ate a few apples, having some oatmeal mixed with milk. He had to say that having magic was like adding wings to a life in Ponyville. At least for Morningstar, who had just recently become a pony. He could use unicorn magic to seamlessly integrate into the world of Ponyville. After a quick wash, he looked at himself in a small mirror, black pupils, blue fur, and gray mane, exuding confidence and determination. Not bad, looking quite spirited, he murmured to himself, feeling very satisfied with his appearance and magical talent, filled with confidence. He firmly believed that although the future was full of uncertainties, it would definitely be bright and hopeful. How exactly it would unfold, Morningstar could only take it as it came. No matter how perilous the future might be, he would do his utmost to protect his envisioned utopia. Chapter 7. Morningstar listens to Xiao Dai's story. Xiao Dai's hospital discharge as an expression of gratitude since the moment he got up to pack his things. He had been staring at his library key. 7th inspection, he muttered, lifting the mane of his left foreleg. A blue magical glow enveloped the key, slowly rising and then gently settling back into the saddlebags compartment. This might be psychological, but Morningstar always felt that this key would slip out of his pocket when he wasn't paying attention and be picked up by a scheming little pony, who would then ransack the library's precious collection. Of course, Morningstar found this strange thought amusing. Not to mention that aside from the seasonal villains, this world shouldn't have such wicked ponies, especially since the library was usually open to the public for free. He didn't know what he was worried about. However, he still needed to be cautious when encountering Tyrek in the future. Morningstar certainly didn't want this beautiful book house to disappear from the world. Today was Morningstar's last visit to the hospital to see Xiao Dai because she was being discharged. Xiao Dai had arranged a time for them to pick Xiao Dai up together. After each visit to Xiao Dai, Morningstar usually went to Xiao Dai's place to sit for a while, have some afternoon tea, and interact warmly with her animals while listening to her share amusing stories about them. This was one of Morningstar's favorite things to do apart from reading. He loved listening to stories, enjoying the position of an audience to hear from others, or rather, from ponies. Back in that heartless factory, the only entertainment he had was quietly eavesdropping on his colleagues' various gossip. Like how one colleague confessed to a girl today, or how another got his salary docked for slacking off. Morningstar enjoyed hearing about the interesting interactions between Xiao Dai and her animal friends. Each little pony had their own responsibilities, and Xiao Dai didn't want to disturb them. So she was happy to have someone to listen to her share these stories. Over time, Morningstar and Xiao Dai had become quite familiar with each other. He liked Xiao Dai's innocent and carefree demeanor. It was something he had envied in the children of others since elementary school. A fulfilling life without worries about food or clothing. Able to pursue their hobbies without pressure or compulsion. So he enjoyed listening to Xiao Dai's stories to patch up his own memories. Morningstar jogged along, feeling quite good. In the past few days, he had been reading magical books at the Ponyville library and then cramming medical books into his brain. Usually, he learned from the books stored in his mind, and when he got tired, he would imprint the library's magical medical books into his brain's database. However, there were too many books in the library, and the magical or medical books were often misplaced, which slowed down his progress in learning magic. So he decided to carefully retrieve the magic he had learned from the two sisters' castle bit by bit to read it again, afraid of missing something. From what he learned from the mayor, it was now around July of the year 999 in the pony calendar, and there was still a long time before the summer celebration, so he could take his time to strengthen his magical knowledge. He believed that by then, he might not even need to step out to face the nightmarish return of the moon and could smoothly welcome its conclusion. Morningstar hoped to witness the growth of the main characters as a bystander and see the ending. He didn't know where the ending was, but all he could do now was keep moving forward. However, one issue was that although he had learned a lot about magic, he couldn't cast it because the magical particles required were enormous. Even if Morningstar compressed the magical particles to the limit, it was still far from enough. He needed a new way to accommodate more magical particles, and he was still far from finding that method. I hope Princess Celestia can be a bit more reliable and not always let things go awry. I still hope that I won't have to step out myself to solve all the problems with a rainbow cannon or something, Morningstar silently prayed. Before long, he arrived at Xiao Dai's doorstep, which was still vibrant and full of life. Knock, knock. Morningstar gently tapped twice, waiting for Xiao Dai to open the door. This was a little agreement between him and Xiao Dai. Previously, his loud knocking had startled some animals inside, so now he only needed to knock lightly. And Xiao Dai would definitely open the door within a minute. The door opened. Looks like Xiao Dai is ready too. Morningstar saw that Xiao Dai had already grabbed her small handbag, ready to go. As they walked, Morningstar and Xiao Dai chatted. Oh, Mr. Morningstar. I'm so glad you could get along with them. About Angel, to be honest, I don't know what that little guy is thinking. Every time I want to talk to him about something, he just angrily turns away and ignores me. He's such a cute little guy. Indeed. Morningstar and Xiao Dai exchanged cheerful banter. The corridor of the hospital was filled with the scent of disinfectant, and sunlight streamed through the stained glass, casting rainbow spots on the ceiling, providing a pleasant mood for passing ponies. As he walked by, the light spot fell right on his silver-gray mane. Like a sprinkle of rainbow candy, or like a clumsy pony knocking over a dye bucket, colorful and vibrant. Around the corner, a nurse pushed a clattering little cart with magic, and the glass bottles in the metal tray clinked crisply together. Knock, knock, knock. Please, come in. A delicate voice came from inside, rivaling Xiao Dai's. As Morningstar pushed open the hospital room door, he saw Xiao Dai awkwardly using her wings to groom her gray mane, wanting to show her beautiful side to Morningstar. But to Morningstar, she looked like a little pony hoping he would notice her efforts, which was quite endearing. Doctor, is there anything Xiao Dai needs to pay attention to now? Morningstar asked. Seeing that there seemed to be nothing more to worry about, Morningstar and Little Butterfly said goodbye to Little Dull and officially discharged from the hospital. As soon as they left, Little Dull faced Morningstar, and when Morningstar tilted his head in confusion, Little Dull wrapped her front hooves around Morningstar's neck and gently kissed his left cheek. Oh, Little Butterfly covered her eyes with her wings, but then completely failed to hide. Morningstar was also taken aback, then looked at Little Dull, who was blushing and staring at the ground. Morningstar reached out a hoof, gently stroking Little Dull's head, and said, "Good girl, is this my gift for being busy?" Morningstar once again showed a gentle smile. He thought these little ponies were so cute that they were almost melting his heart. Morningstar urgently changed the subject. Little Dull, Little Butterfly, have you thought about what you want to eat? Today happens to be the market day, there's a lot to eat outside, and Uncle will treat you. Morningstar said gently. The market was crowded with little tents, and every little pony was eager to promote their products, with many shouting at the top of their lungs to attract the attention of other ponies amidst the hustle and bustle. No, that's okay, brother. And you don't look that old either, Little Dull said somewhat dejectedly. Morningstar was a bit puzzled. How old was he now? Little Butterfly, how old do I look to you? Morningstar turned to ask Little Butterfly, who was on his right. Well, Mr. Morningstar, you look like you're in your teens, about the same age as my brother. But you're very mature, which made me feel strange when I first saw you. It seems that this little pony body doesn't match my human age. How strange. As they passed a little pony selling candied hawthorns, Morningstar clearly felt Little Dull's wings tremble involuntarily. It seems she wants to eat that. Morningstar saw her cute mark was 2 strings of candied hawthorns drizzled with syrup. An elderly grandmother was smiling kindly, watching the bustling market. Morningstar trotted over, bought 2 strings of candied hawthorns for the 2 of them, and used magic to hold them, so they could eat while walking. Thank you, Brother Morningstar. Although Morningstar had already heard it, his playful side kicked in. He suddenly stopped, leaned his agile little pony ears close to Little Dull, and whispered, Little Dull. What did you say? I can't hear you. Little Dull's face turned red again, like the noon sun. Humph, I won't talk to you anymore, Brother Morningstar. Little Dull suddenly shouted into Morningstar's ear and ran off with the candied hawthorn held by her wings. Wait, Little Dull, don't go. Morningstar wore a mischievous smile and ran after Little Dull. Little Butterfly watched from the side, covering her mouth with her wings and secretly laughing. She thought this scene looked very much like a pair of siblings joking around. Chapter 8. Pinkie Pie throws a surprise party. Morningstar finally meets Team 5. Their final destination was the Golden Oak Library, where Morningstar currently lived. Just as Morningstar went to chase Little Dull, Pinkie Pie suddenly appeared before him as if she had materialized out of thin air. Morningstar's face was buried in Pinkie Pie's fluffy pink curls. Hey, it tickles. Ha. Pinkie Pie fell to the ground laughing until Morningstar managed to free himself from her lush pink mane. To be fair, there wasn't anything pre-prepared in Pinkie Pie's curls. The space was just the normal capacity of hair. So how did Pinkie Pie conjure those things? Morningstar shook his head, trying to dismiss these strange thoughts from his mind. If he tried to analyze Pinkie Pie's series of unreasonable behaviors with full brain power, even his brain would probably crash. Pinkie, did you suddenly teleport to me for something? Oh, nothing, Morningstar. It was clear that Pinkie Pie was not good at lying. Her gaze was obviously evasive, and her breath was notably shallow, indicating she was hiding something from him. Oh, Pinkie, why did you knock me down? Hee, cough, cough. I just wanted to ask if you have any plans for today. Morningstar raised his eyebrows in a manner similar to Applejack. I don't think so. After I finish wandering the market with them, we should go to the library for a meal. And then I don't have any plans for the rest of the day. Okay, bye. In the blink of an eye, Pinkie Pie vanished again without using magic. What a strange little pony. Next, Morningstar continued to stroll through the market with Little Butterfly and Little Dull, chatting happily among themselves. As Celestia was about to lower the sun, The afterglow of the sunset illuminated the three little ponies heading toward the library. Morningstar had some predictions about Pinkie Pie's strange behavior. The two fillies began to whisper to each other. "What do you think of Brother Morningstar?" Little Dull asked Little Butterfly secretly while Morningstar wasn't paying attention. "Well, Mr. Morningstar is a very friendly pony. Although he seemed a bit intimidating when I first saw you, you'll find he is actually very nice and willing to help, getting along well with every little pony he meets." Little Butterfly whispered back. Morningstar didn't hear them. He was just enjoying the comfortable warmth of the sun on his fur. So nice. Before long, the three little ponies arrived at the entrance of the Golden Oak Library, with the dusk gilding the clouds and shining upon the earth. Morningstar used a key to open the door, and it was pitch dark inside, with nothing visible. He reached to the right, and as the lights turned on, the sight could be described as a sea of ponies. Suddenly, the sweet scent of cotton candy, carried by Pinkie Pie's pink mane, filled his vision. Morningstar was overwhelmed by the aroma of cream and frosting lingering in her hair. So sweet, so delicious. It met the little pony's love for sweets perfectly. Morningstar chewed slowly, feeling the sugar dance on his tongue. At that moment, an orange pony caught Morningstar's attention. As she wore that iconic cowboy hat and was chatting in a strange accent, Morningstar walked over, as he could never forget this pony. "Hello, I'm Morningstar, the new librarian of the Golden Oak Library. May I ask who you are?" Morningstar politely greeted. He was then dazzled by Applejack's enthusiastic demeanor. This was the second time Morningstar was shocked by the warmth of the ponies. He knew Applejack was friendly, but experiencing it firsthand was still heartwarming. And he felt moved by the sincerity of the ponies. "Next time I have time, I'll definitely come visit you, Applejack." A blue figure rushed past Morningstar, sizing him up from top to bottom. "Hey dude, you're pretty cool. I'm Rainbow Dash. Do you want to race me in volleyball or running? I can do it without my wings. Even just running on my legs, I'm still the fastest." "All right, Rainbow Dash, when I have some free time, I'll definitely race you and see who is better." Morningstar raised his hoof and bumped it with rainbows as a promise. At that moment, an elegant little pony walked over, stepping with delicate movements. Suddenly, as if seeing a rare gem, Rarity rushed straight to Morningstar. Rarity used her unicorn magic to hold a measuring tape and wrap it around him to take measurements. Although he didn't know how these things appeared, he could only consider it a part of Rarity's professionalism. "Darling, your shoulder line proportions are simply made for a tuxedo. You must come to my clothing store sometime. I can make you a free outfit." The measuring tape paused at his waist. "But please make sure to come next Wednesday, when the Silk Guild from Canterlot has new stock." "All right, Miss Rarity, I will definitely visit your clothing store when I have time, so you can let your inspiration flow." Morningstar bowed deeply, displaying his gentlemanly demeanor. "Oh, darling, you are so gentlemanly. I must hire you as my model. I'm sure I can design a unique outfit that will sweep across Manhattan." In the library, Morningstar saw many familiar main and side characters, along with a crowd of passerby ponies. Except for Twilight Sparkle, almost all the main and side characters had arrived. And it was just like when Twilight came to Ponyville for the summer celebration inspection. At that moment, three young fillies ran over and asked Morningstar together, "Hello, Uncle Morningstar. Your cute cutie mark looks really cool. Can you tell us about its origin when you have time?" Morningstar looked down and realized they were the adorable cutie mark crusaders. He happily bent down and gently said, "Of course, little ones. I will definitely tell you all about it when I have the time." Although Morningstar hadn't thought of a reasonable explanation yet, he felt they would love to hear about magic. Everyone was very happy, possibly because of the joyful atmosphere. The whole party was exceptionally lively. Pinkie Pie occasionally set off fireworks, showering the entire living room with colorful confetti, and at times, she poured a large bottle of hot sauce over cupcakes and swallowed them whole without flinching, leaving the ponies in awe. At the final moment, together with the ponies, she turned the usually quiet library into a disco hall, with every pony singing and dancing passionately. For Morningstar, it was indeed quite enjoyable. Although he didn't remember all the ponies' names, at that moment, he could sing and dance freely with them, regardless of whether he knew them or not. He compared pitch with Pinkie Pie, street dance with Rainbow Dash, ring toss with Applejack, and danced with Fluttershy and Derpy. Morningstar was fully immersed in this brief party life. At least for now, he didn't have to worry about any potential evil problems in the future. He could entertain himself, play music, and dance. The party lasted until midnight, and Princess Celestia had already hung the moon high in the sky, signaling the end of the party. No matter how lively a party is, it will eventually come to an end. After the conclusion, Morningstar bid farewell to both familiar and unfamiliar ponies. "Hey, buddy, don't forget our promise." Before leaving, Rainbow Dash hoof-bumped Morningstar as a vow. "Oh, darling, please don't forget to come to my clothing store. I believe we will have a wonderful time together." Rarity waved her hoof and said before leaving, Please be sure to come to the apple orchard, Mr. Morningstar. We will definitely treat you well. Applejack shook Morningstar's hoof once more. Morningstar believed he would adapt, probably. Fluttershy said quietly and walked away. Derpy hugged Morningstar's neck before leaving, reluctant to part. In the end, only Morningstar and Pinkie Pie remained in the library. The two of them tidied up the living room of the library. And they did it much faster than Morningstar expected, often in the blink of an eye, not knowing what else Pinkie Pie had put away. Those things shouldn't be hidden in her curly hair, right? Morningstar's worldview was once again slightly shocked. As the moon hung directly above the treetops, Morningstar said goodbye to Pinkie Pie. I hope you had fun today. Thank you, Pinkie. I had a great time. They waved goodbye. Then, before falling asleep, Morningstar recalled the books from the two sisters' castle and prepared to finish reading the last dozen books. However, after playing all night, his brain strongly resisted, and he ultimately decided it was better to sleep first. No rush. I'll sleep first and talk about it tomorrow. Chapter 9. Morningstar enters Dreamland and awakes in Central City. It was another calm day. Princess Celestia raised the sun as usual, and Morningstar once again basked in the golden light, unable to extricate himself. I have to say, with Rainbow Dash and the others clearing the clouds, it's almost sunny every day. He stretched, washed up, and had his usual breakfast of milk and oats. When he was human, Morningstar didn't find oats tasty at all, but after becoming a pony, he discovered that his taste and favorite foods had changed. The apples from the orchard and oat flakes became his favorites. The fragrant and crispy apples, with juice bursting in his mouth, felt like a gift from the divine to Pony Maria. Of course, in Pony Maria, those apples might just be a gift from Princess Celestia. Next, while sorting books, Morningstar cleaned up a bit, and after finishing today's work, he prepared to read the last few magic books from the two sisters' castle. Otherwise, they were all strange notes or diaries, similar to Starlight's travel diary or some draft papers. Morningstar even found doodles by Celestia and Luna in there. In the faded crayon drawings, two little ponies appeared, probably due to a fight over the paintbrush, both covered in colorful marker stains, looking quite vintage. It seems these two sisters were quite mischievous when they were young. It's a pity for Celestia. She had to banish her sister to the moon. Of course, Morningstar had to look at these things, whether he wanted to or not. Who knew if there was something inside that he could use right now? Oh my. This book is actually a reflection from the two sisters, filled with things like drawing on the sleeping Starlight's mustache or using magic to play tricks, turning Starlight's two-day manuscript to ashes. Such things have filled the entire book. It seems this one is also useless. Morningstar decisively retrieved the next book from his brain's storage library. Aside from eating a few apples for lunch, Morningstar spent the whole day reading those odd books. After discarding one book after another, finally, there was just this last one left. I hope the books from the two sisters' castle have some sort of guarantee. Morningstar looked at the title. Well, nothing was there. The book's surface was smooth, and nothing was written on it. When he opened it, he found that it was a book where Starlight had accidentally discovered a method to slowly enhance his magical capacity. He called it the quick circulation method, which allowed magic particles to be quickly absorbed into the body and then easily dispersed through the horn, thereby increasing the number of magic particles that the organs and blood vessels in the body could hold, enabling the use of more powerful magic. Just as Morningstar was feeling happy, he noticed a line of small print. Of course, this process is very slow. Please be persistent. Morningstar didn't see any problem with it. Even if the effect wasn't great, he could give it a try. After all, this was the only useful knowledge he had obtained from the two sisters' castle. Just as he was about to try it, he found that there were a few pages left in the book, so he decided to read them all before practicing. Of course, there was another method I discovered through extensive experimentation, which showed that magic particles could be transformed into a black particle state, allowing for the absorption of even more particles. Although the dark magic particles released dark magic that should not be underestimated, it was obvious that its transformation efficiency was extremely low and would affect the pony's mentality. So use it with caution. If it comes to a national crisis, and it must be used, I have learned a method to quickly transform magic particles. But Morningstar repeatedly flipped through the memories of the book in his mind, but there was no continuation. That page seems to be missing. How coincidental is that? Morningstar closed the book and exited his meditation state. He looked up at the window, where a moon engraved with the shadow of a little pony still hung in the sky. Morningstar shook his head, knowing that this matter couldn't be rushed. He might as well practice the rapid circulation method that Star Sphere had recommended. Morningstar closed his eyes, greedily absorbing magical particles, while simultaneously expelling them quickly using his horn. He found this process quite uncomfortable, with his whole body protesting. But he figured it was similar to the soreness one feels after a day of intense exercise, and he could only grit his teeth and persevere. After about 3 to 4 minutes, Morningstar stopped the rapid circulation. He lay on the ground, panting heavily, feeling pain all over his body, akin to the soreness felt after vigorous exercise. He struggled to get up, took a quick shower, and then slowly read books from the Golden Oak Library in bed until he fell asleep. The next day, Morningstar got up early, went through the same routine as yesterday, and decided to take a break. He arranged a little vacation for himself since it was Wednesday, which was just the right time to visit the 5 main characters and build some relationships. As he walked, Morningstar pondered, will the Ponyville Library have books on dark magic? He felt a slight tension, although he was reassured that defeating Nightmare Moon was within their grasp. He couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to learn the method Starsphere mentioned. Most importantly, he believed that the dark magic particles entering his body in the Everfree Forest was definitely not a coincidence. He couldn't get lost in the beauty of Ponyville. He needed to prepare for battle. Morningstar thought that his arrival might cause a butterfly effect, so he had to become strong enough. Of course, there were still a few months until the 1000th year of Equestria. Just a few days off should be fine, right? He really didn't want to get lost in Ponyville. A few days of rest couldn't be called immersion, could it? Morningstar first went to Sweet Apple Acres to find Applejack. He was eager to try the freshest apple dishes because he wasn't very good at cooking. He couldn't just eat apples and oatmeal every day, could he? Suddenly, a little Pegasus flew past Morningstar, almost crashing into a nearby house. Are you okay, Scootaloo? Oh, Morningstar, I'm fine. I've recovered, and I need to continue delivering letters. Scootaloo still seemed shy, keeping her head slightly down and avoiding eye contact with Morningstar. As she flew past him, Morningstar noticed her flight path looked strange, possibly related to her eyes. The reason she can't fly more efficiently might also relate to some areas of her brain. He decided to head to Canterlot after finishing the medical and magical books at the Ponyville Library to use advanced healing magic to fix Scootaloo's eyesight, and of course, to address the issue with Fluttershy's wings as well. Upon arriving at Sweet Apple Acres, Morningstar was surprised by how large the place was. As he looked around, aside from the large barn and a few houses in front of him, almost everything was apple trees. It truly lived up to the Apple family's reputation, as the orchard was almost as big as Ponyville itself. Morningstar entered Sweet Apple Acres, the red barn's cedar exterior wafted with the scent of pine resin. With each step he took, his hooves sank into the warm, sun-baked soil. In the shadow of the barn, 4 or 5 oak barrels were stacked, and Morningstar could hear the whispers of freshly brewed apple cider bubbling inside, as if discussing when they could finally be free from their barrels. Hello. It looks like you could use a hoof. Morningstar, you're here. Applejack came over and warmly shook hands with him. Without delay, Morningstar intended to test the strength of his magic. He walked over to a basket of apples and lifted it with magic. Not too heavy. Then he lifted another basket nearby, about average weight. Ultimately, Morningstar discovered he could levitate 7 or 8 baskets of apples at once. Of course, Applejack and Big Mac were quite surprised, as this far exceeded the typical magical output of an ordinary unicorn. Morningstar, it looks like your magical talent is quite strong. I remember Rarity could only lift 2 baskets at most. Just lucky. Let us move all these apples into the barn together. All right, Big Mac finally said 2 words. After about 2 hours, all the apples were moved into the barn, and at that moment, Morningstar felt the warmth of the Apple family once again. Applejack introduced him to Granny Smith and Apple Bloom, and they all had lunch together. The table was filled with a variety of apple products: apple pie, apple jam, apple bread, apple muffins, red mousse, gold mousse, apple rolls, baked apples, and more. Soon, the entire table was covered with plates, and just like reading a menu, Applejack presented over a dozen apple dishes. The aroma of apples wafted into Morningstar's nose, stimulating his senses. Morningstar savored the apple treats, letting them dance on his tongue before they tumbled into his stomach. At that moment, he felt completely satisfied. After finishing lunch, Morningstar bid farewell to the Apple family. Before leaving, Applejack gave him a hug, and the fresh scent of apples wafted from her hair. The Apple family will always be your friends, Morningstar. Come back anytime. Morningstar waved goodbye to Applejack, Big Mac, and Apple Bloom. In the afternoon, Morningstar arrived punctually at Rarity's boutique, gently knocking on the door. Upon realizing it was Morningstar, Rarity's eyes lit up, and she magically pulled him inside, placing him on the display stage while measuring his body with a tape measure and taking notes. 5 minutes later, she dashed to the workshop to start making clothes. Before long, Rarity brought out a brand new outfit and put it on Morningstar, handing him a mirror. Morningstar had to admit, when he saw himself in the mirror, he thought the little ponies looked quite good in clothes. This was also related to his human values. He always felt it was inappropriate to walk down the street without clothes, but seeing that almost no ponies wore clothes eased his mind. If no one was wearing clothes, It was as if everyone was. After trying on that outfit, Morningstar officially became Rarity's exclusive model, trying on all the clothes she made. Standing on the fitting stage, he admired his image, striking cool poses in the mirrors surrounding him. Morningstar had lost count of how many outfits he had tried on, dancing gracefully with 4 other versions of himself in Rarity's imaginative creations. As the sun began to set, Rarity's work table already had a dozen sketches. Oh dear, thank you for being my model for so long. Rarity felt a bit guilty for taking up so much of Morningstar's time. It's fine, Rarity. If you need anything, just let me know at the library. Morningstar said goodbye to Rarity. Then he fell into a sense of guilt, feeling he should quickly search for information on dark magic and the transformation of dark magic particles in the Golden Oak Library, rather than engaging in meaningless activities with the 5 of them. As the sun and moon alternated, aside from reading, cataloging books, going to Sweet Apple Acres for apples, and visiting the market for oats, Morningstar did nothing else. He forced himself to find that method of transforming magical particles. He felt that his ability to attract dark magic particles was suspicious. He didn't know where those particles were going, but he knew they were lurking within him. He needed to learn more to explain his origins and control these unstable factors within his hooves. He disliked the feeling of ignorance and did not want to lose control of the situation. He feared being consumed by darkness while being intrigued by its power. He needed to find a balance to manage the situation. For an entire month, Morningstar had been searching. He knew the chances of finding what he was looking for were slim, but he was eager to enhance his powers. Memories of being devoured by a wood spirit wolf months ago, due to his inability to use magic, resurfaced in his mind, so vivid, so terrifying. It was a shock to his soul. Morningstar swore he would never experience such a thing again. Shaking his head, he tossed those chaotic thoughts aside and continued his search for clues on the transformation method. Finally, after several weeks, he finished reading all the magic and medical books in the Golden Oak Library, filled with useless texts. Ultimately, Morningstar had to conclude that he must make a trip to the Canterlot National Library, which housed books and scrolls from all over the country. Established during the Ancient Sage era and expanded in the Age of Starshine, there was even a dedicated section for books documenting the Whitebeard Starshine. What if it's in the restricted section of the Royal Library? Morningstar was out of ideas. Since he could no longer learn new magic in Ponyville, he had to go to Canterlot to unravel the mystery of his identity. The day before heading to Canterlot, Morningstar explained everything to the mayor and temporarily stepped down from his position as librarian to learn new knowledge in Canterlot. On the day of his departure, he bought a train ticket to Canterlot and, upon entering the station, saw his friends and little Dell waiting for him. Seeing them waiting warmed his heart. Apart from his parents, he had never experienced such a feeling in the human world, like a dried-up river regaining its vitality. Of course, he didn't want to lie to them or worry them with his troubles, so he stuck to the same words he had shared with the mayor. His friends and little Dell expressed their understanding and hoped for his safe return. As the ticket inspector signaled for ticket collection to begin, the farewell was coming to an end. Morningstar hugged each of them and waved goodbye. He didn't know what difficulties lay ahead, but he felt that in Canterlot, he should be able to find the answers he was looking for to solve some of his mysteries. The dream of a gentle homeland had to end. Chapter 11. Meeting Moon Dance at the library. After handing his ticket to the inspector, Morningstar took his lightly packed luggage, some food, and the small amount of money he had saved over the past few months. It's quite convenient that ponies don't wear clothes, so I don't have to buy any or carry them around. Morningstar was becoming more familiar with this body. It felt as if it was naturally a part of him. Aside from the initial discomfort, he had seamlessly integrated into the world of Ponyville, feeling like a competent little pony in all aspects, including magic, even superior in magical talent. I wonder if I crossed over from the world of Equestria girls, or if it's more like a soul transfer. If the crossover theory holds, will I meet my counterpart? If not, does that make me a special pony? The only pony from Earth. As the sharp sound of steam pierced the air, the train slowly began to move. Morningstar sat by the window in the middle car, gazing outside, then shook his head, casting aside those strange thoughts. No matter if they're a pony like me, I am who I am. While working at the Black Heart Factory, Morningstar had struggled to think effectively, merely being a cog in the machine. A mindless ordinary pony, numbed by MyLittlePony. Now, in this new place, he found himself bursting with time, able to read vast amounts of books and absorb knowledge daily. Based on what he saw in Re-Zero, his future path would likely not be simple. The wood spirit wolf was just a minor warning. The train was not fast, moving steadily along the tracks. Morningstar hadn't brought anything like a phone for entertainment, so he closed his eyes and fell into deep thought, his mental self wandering through an endless corridor of a library stored in his brain, occasionally checking previous magic books for any overlooked details. When he finally awoke, He looked to the right and saw that night had already enveloped Ponyville. According to the inspector, this train will take a full day. What a bore. Morningstar leaned back and fell asleep. Sir? Sir? Morningstar felt a hoof gently tapping his face. He drowsily opened his eyes to see a train attendant looking at him. Sir, the train has arrived at the final station, Canterlot. You should disembark. Oh, sorry. I'll get off right away. Morningstar quickly used magic to lift his luggage and vanished at the train station exit. The little pony stared as Morningstar left and began jotting down notes. Blue body, gray unicorn, high magic level, high risk. Morningstar asked around, planning to rent a room at an inn before searching for clues at the Canterlot library. This was his first time truly visiting Canterlot, and he was quite surprised by the level of modernization. While Ponyville had 1- and 2-story houses, Canterlot was filled with sprawling mansions, and the streets were mostly solid asphalt with rows of electric lights lining both sides, making it seem as bright as day even at night. Many ponies on the street wore elegant attire. The gentlemen sported monocles and black top hats, while the ladies wore trailing gowns and carried leather handbags, reminiscent of early 20th century England. As soon as he entered Canterlot, Morningstar felt out of place. The ponies here are so pretentious. Morningstar approached a pony selling newspapers, tipped him a silver coin, and inquired about reasonably priced long-term inns. I must say, this library is indeed quite grand. Morningstar gazed at the vast library, stepped inside, took a deep breath, and savored the aroma of books. He learned about the general classification of books from the front desk staff and decided to read while taking notes, determined to find the method Starshine had mentioned. Morningstar took out a book titled Origins of Advanced Magic and found a less crowded spot to begin reading. For the next few days, Morningstar traveled back and forth between the Canterlot library and his lodging, engaging in a 2-point routine. One day, as he pulled out a book and headed to his usual reading spot, he bumped into another pony who was also reaching for magic books. Bang! 3 or 4 books fell to the ground, and the 2 ponies rubbed their heads as they looked at each other. Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am. I was too focused on finding books and didn't see you coming. Truly sorry. Morningstar apologized with a sincere expression as he helped the bespectacled mare up. Noticing her purple and burgundy hair, her light yellow body reminiscent of Little Dell, and her hair tied back with a simple rubber band. Oh, sir, it's fine. I know you didn't do it on purpose. Moondance then flashed a standard polite smile. How many times had he seen Moondance now? Morningstar thought to himself. He had been in this library for nearly a week, and every time he finished picking a book and went to a less populated area to read, he always spotted her. It seemed Moondance frequently visited the Canterlot library as well, often reading books on magic classifications. Morningstar helped Moondance pick up the fallen books and glanced at them. History of Magic Development in Ponyville, Magic and Industry. Diversified Applications of Magic. He had already read through all of these. Moondance also noticed the book beside Morningstar titled Origins of Magic, the Starshine chapter. Oh, sir. I noticed you've been reading a lot of books about magic these days. It seems you are also a talented pony in the field of magic. If possible, could we discuss it together at your convenience? I'm about to graduate from graduate school, and I urgently need a pony who is well-versed in magic to help me complete my thesis. It seems that Yuawu has also noticed her own knowledge of magic these days. Morningstar saw how knowledgeable she was about magic and wanted to ask her about her insights on magic to see if there were any clues about transforming magical particles. The 2 ponies hit it off. All right, ma'am, if possible, I'd like to invite you to dinner tonight after the library closes as my apology. And then we can discuss magic-related knowledge together, okay? Morningstar smoothly followed up on Yuawu's words. Sure, I highly recommend the honey pancakes and caramel coffee at the Royal CAF. They effectively replenish the brain cells consumed. By the way, my name is Yuawu. Nice to meet you. Yuawu extended her hoof. As you wish, Yuawu. My name is Morningstar, and I'm also glad to meet you. Morningstar shook hooves with Yuawu. Soon, the 2 ponies spent the afternoon reading until the Canterlot library closed. They had already obtained library cards and were carrying their books on their backs. As they exited the library, the streetlights on both sides lit up, illuminating the street, and Morningstar headed to the Royal CAF on Yuawu's recommendation. It seemed that many shops in Canterlot named themselves Royal to attract new tourist ponies, making them appear more upscale. Of course, the Royal CAF did have something worth mentioning, so it could be considered acceptable. Morningstar and Yuawu sat by the window, and the waiter came over with the menu. Morningstar first ordered 2 caramel coffees and honey pancakes, then handed the menu to Yuawu, and finally ordered 2 fructose hay burgers. I must say, the ponies from Ponyville have quite the sweet tooth, adding a lot of sugar to many things. Yet there are few overweight ponies. Morningstar wondered if this could be attributed to some kind of magic at work. Morningstar and Yuawu engaged in a heated discussion about their insights into magic. They exchanged thoughts, expressing their views on magic. At that moment, it felt like they had found kindred spirits, chatting while eating, and Morningstar also used his knowledge to help Yuwu with the questions that arose in her thesis. They only stopped their discussion when they realized they had finished their meal, and after saying their goodbyes, they decided to part ways. Aside from the princesses, I don't think there are any other ponies with your magical talent right now. I hope we can discuss it again tomorrow. I'm very interested in your insights on the rapid flow method left by Xing Xuan and other magic, Yuwu said to Morningstar. Aside from her mentor, it was the first time Yuwu encountered a pony with such insights into practical magic and healing magic. As most unicorns did not study practical magic and healing magic due to the presence of hospitals in Princess Celestia. After all, compared to attack and healing, they preferred to excel in areas they were interested in, and for magic, transformation magic and telekinesis were spells that most ponies could master. The theory of magical particle compression was something no pony understood, and even if they did, no pony would pursue it. After all, as long as Princess Celestia and the Royal Guard were around, everything would be fine. Yuwu rarely interacted with other ponies besides Twilight Sparkle, making Morningstar the third knowledgeable pony she had met in the true sense, and she enjoyed communicating with such ponies. Morningstar also discussed the possibility of the hypothesis of transforming magical particles with Yuwu and debated it, with both agreeing that magical particles could be transformed. Morningstar knew that Yuwu had a good friend, at least before the first episode of My Little Pony's first season, and he really wanted to meet the true protagonist of My Little Pony, Twilight Sparkle. His favorite pony was Twilight Sparkle because he found her knowledgeable, rigorous, serious, and a bit eccentric, which was the kind of pony he admired. Of course, apart from not being eccentric, he was quite similar to Twilight Sparkle now. Well then, let's part ways here. I hope we can discuss magic again tomorrow. Morningstar gave Yuwu a standard smile, and Yuwu felt a bit shy, her cheeks slightly flushed, as she had hardly interacted with ponies like Morningstar before. Days passed, and since Morningstar didn't worry much about money, he spent every day in the Canterlot library just like Yuwu. He felt excited to have a pony similar to her, as he could exchange magical insights with Yuwu every day, and if there were any misunderstandings, Yuwu would try to help him clarify them. I must say, such days were beautiful yet short-lived. After 2 months of effort, Morningstar still hadn't found a way to transform magical particles, but he successfully assisted Yuwu in completing her thesis. One day, Morningstar and Yuwu were dining at the Royal CAF as usual, which had become their must-visit place after the library closed, giving them both a reason to chat a little longer. Morningstar, I'm very grateful that you appeared by my side when I was most anxious, Yuwu sighed. She was struggling with her thesis and had come to the library to find a suitable direction for it. Just when she didn't know what to do, Morningstar entered her line of sight, and she suddenly noticed a handsome pony who, like her, often came to the library to read, and was also reading books about magic. By chance, the two ponies met. Morningstar was very happy to have this friend, and they had recently become the closest ponies to each other. It was hard for Morningstar to find a pony with a knowledge base comparable to his, especially since neither of them was particularly lively. However, after meeting each other, they gradually opened up and began to talk about everything. Morningstar was also very grateful to Yuwu for helping him resolve doubts over the past few months, and Yuwu brought a different ripple to what Morningstar thought was a monotonous level. Yuwu, I'm lucky to be able to help a pony with her biggest trouble. I feel honored. I have good news. My thesis has been approved, which means I can graduate smoothly. Oh, congratulations, Yuwu. I wish you a smooth graduation in advance. Just in time for you to take a good rest and not have to run to the library every day. Yuwu suddenly wrapped her hooves around Morningstar's neck and gave him a hug. After releasing him, Morningstar noticed a slight blush on her face. Morningstar, the day of the summer celebration is also my graduation day. My classmates and I are planning to throw a party at my house. Would you like to come? Yuewu's black eyes looked at Morningstar, eager for him to attend her gathering, hoping to maintain a better relationship with him. She remembered that Twilight Sparkle didn't attend her party, which left Yuwu almost without any ponies around, with no friends, just silently reading and studying in solitude. Day in and day out. How pitiful. Morningstar thought about himself, lying in bed every day and doing nothing but work, having little contact with his parents. He didn't want to experience that again, nor did he want Yuwu to go through it. Of course, the Yuwu in this world hadn't experienced these things yet. Morningstar also had no intention of letting her go through those unpleasant experiences. After a brief moment of contemplation, Morningstar gently said, there is only 1 month left until the summer festival, and after discussing with Moon Dance, Morningstar feels that this way of life is coming to an end. The turbulent era of Little Malia is about to begin. Can Morningstar survive it again? Chapter 13, Moon Dance's Party Confession. The return of the nightmare moon. This should be one of the few times Morningstar doesn't have to think too much. Every day is just walking, strolling, reading, and sharing thoughts on books with Moondance. He now thinks that perhaps this world really doesn't have any major problems. Am I overthinking? Maybe I'm just a lucky pony who came to Little Malia, and this world can defeat all villains through harmony and rainbow magic. Morningstar, is there something wrong with what I just said? Why have you been thinking for so long? Moondance asked curiously, noticing Morningstar deep in thought. Oh, it's nothing, Moondance. I was just thinking about what gift I should bring to your party. Moondance's face turned slightly red. I'll like whatever you give me. Morningstar patted Moondance's head, saying, you know I prefer practical magic. How about I teach you some self-defense spells to prevent you from being bullied by some little rascals? But you'll protect me, right? Foolish child. There will always be times when I'm not around. You must learn to protect yourself. Only by being strong can you avoid feeling hopeless in dangerous situations. Morningstar could tell that Moondance had developed feelings for him, but he didn't know if he could make her happy. Moreover, she was still young, and the road ahead was long. He believed he should be there for her when she needed help. So he thought it would be best not to pursue a romantic relationship with her just yet, hoping that a month or two would be enough for Moondance to reassess her feelings for him. This made Morningstar quite troubled. He didn't know how to make friends with other ponies. He was only good at passively accepting and listening. He was afraid of relationships and even marriage. He feared he wasn't good enough, so he worked hard to study. In the human world, he hadn't studied well and ended up in a corrupt factory. Now, he felt like he had been given a second chance at life, especially with magic, which he was very interested in researching. He already felt very happy. He didn't dare to ask for too much. The most important thing was that these ponies were young and full of vitality, which he envied. He hoped to see them spread their wings and soar. It's not good to take advantage of a situation. Time is needed for things to settle. Morningstar felt that whether it was Little Days or Moondance, he had earned their affection by standing up for them in times of crisis, which didn't align with his values. In short, he thought it was unethical. The books Morningstar was currently reading were all related to magic and medicine. He had learned about the pony's body structure and even delved into knowledge related to cells and genes. He had heard that Little Days had her eyes skewed due to an accident, while Flying Board had a congenital wing development issue. Therefore, Morningstar needed to treat both of them from the level of nerve cells and hormone genes. Aside from lacking practical experience, he believed he was capable of curing Little Days and Flying Board. If all else failed, he would have to try using dark magic to heal them, provided he could master the method of transforming magical particles. But I can't rush. Everything is interconnected. After searching for so many months in the library, he estimated that he could only find the second half of the Starry manuscript in the restricted section of the My Little Pony storyline. He didn't believe he could sneak into the restricted section under Princess Celestia's nose, although he could ask for her help. But how could he even meet her? He thought about meeting Princess Celestia through Twilight Sparkle, but he didn't know where she was now. How could he find her? Moondance enjoyed Morningstar's gentle touch on her head. His heavy hoof gliding over her fur felt very comforting. She noticed that Morningstar was lost in thought again, his hooves moving mechanically. This made her a little angry. She didn't know what he was thinking and wanted to understand him, to know why he often seemed distracted. Morningstar, what are you thinking about again? Moondance asked, displeased. Oh, Moondance, I was thinking about your pen pal you mentioned before. Has she written to congratulate you lately? Humph. That fool hasn't replied to me in 2 months. Aside from saying she has a big thing to do, she hasn't said anything else. I don't know what she is up to. She hasn't told me. Moondance was angry about Twilight Sparkle's sudden disappearance. But she was also worried that Twilight might have run into some big trouble. However, she thought about it and reasoned that since she was Princess Celestia's student, there shouldn't be any real danger. In their previous conversations, Moondance had mentioned Twilight Sparkle, so Morningstar was aware of this so-called pen pal. However, since Moondance didn't delve deeper into the topic, he didn't ask more. I used to correspond with Twilight Sparkle. We were inseparable friends in kindergarten. She is very much like me. But since I got into Canterlot Elementary and kept advancing, we could only communicate through letters. She got accepted into the Academy of Gifted Unicorns and became a direct student of Princess Celestia. Morningstar listened to Moondance, pondering something. He suspected that the royal family might intentionally let the sea loose to gather the holders of harmony elements and let Twilight Sparkle focus on the summer festival and go to Ponyville to make friends. Everything seems so reasonable, as long as nothing unexpected happens. He wondered if she would come to his graduation party. Moondance had also sent an invitation to Twilight Sparkle, but she didn't know if she would be able to attend. Probably not, after all. This is a plot set up from the first season. Let us hope so. Morningstar replied nonchalantly. As long as Morningstar comes, I believe he will definitely be there. Moondance's focus shifted back to Morningstar. She knew he would come, and then during the climax of the party, she would express her feelings to him, successfully encouraged by her friends. Of course, at this moment, Morningstar was still thinking about whether his healing magic could completely cure Little Days and Flying Board. He prayed that he must succeed. As time passed day by day, the day of the summer festival drew closer. Canterlot was decorated everywhere, and ponies occasionally walked into stores to shop, preparing to decorate their homes. Everything was harmonious, beautiful, and peaceful. These days flew by quickly, and soon the calendar of Ponyville turned to this day. December 31st, 999 in the pony calendar. This year marked a full 1,000 years, making it even more significant. Princess Celestia would go to Ponyville and raise the sun for January 1st from the town's conference hall. On this day, Morningstar had an early breakfast at a random shop and then went to help Moondance prepare for the party. Moondance set up many small tables in her yard, enough for nearly 20 ponies. Her parents hung colorful decorations and a banner congratulating Moondance on completing her graduate studies at the entrance. When Morningstar arrived, he began to help Moondance set up everything for the party. On the morning of December 31st, 999, Morningstar helped arrange tables and chairs, brought out candies and drinks, and tidied up the entire party venue. This was the first time Morningstar had met Moondance's parents. Is this considered meeting the parents? Morningstar shook his head, dismissing such thoughts. Moondance walked over at this moment. Morningstar noticed that today she had made a special effort not to tie her hair back. Her purplish-red hair fell gracefully down her neck, looking beautiful. He seemed a bit dazed. Today, Yuewu's appearance had a striking contrast that captivated Qinxing. How is it, Qinxing? Do I look good today? Yuewu asked shyly. She rarely dressed up because she thought it was a waste of time, but today was an exception. She wanted to do something monumental for herself. You look beautiful, Yuewu. Yuewu's parents secretly glanced in Qinxing's direction while tidying up the party venue and noticed this scene. What do you think of the little horse that Xiaowu found? Humph. I don't think he's good enough. Oh dear, don't be mad at Xiaowu. When she told you about this party, it was not just to celebrate Xiaowu's graduation, but also to address that matter, right? You were so angry when she had the baby. Are you still upset? Just look at Xiaowu, and then at Qinxing. It's clear they are in love. Sigh, I'm just afraid Xiaowu might get hurt. She said she wanted to confess to Qinxing at the party, and I still feel a headache thinking about it. That girl has done something very brave. But didn't you also confess to me publicly on the street? Yuewu's father blushed and retorted. Well, all right, after all these days of watching them. Qinxing is indeed a decent horse. He could be with Xiaowu. Plus, I heard he doesn't have parents, so he's a poor horse. It would be perfect for him to stay with us, so he won't have to rent a place. Qinxing didn't know what was happening today. He felt a bit dizzy and could sense hormones rapidly affecting his body. He took a gentle sniff, and the fragrance from Yuewu enveloped him, making him even more flustered. Qinxing wondered why Yuewu looked so beautiful and cute. He didn't know what was wrong with him and could only blame it on those pesky hormones. As the atmosphere between the two horses grew thicker, Yuewu's father stepped forward. Ahem. He cleared his throat to remind the two young horses to be mindful of their surroundings. Qinxing and Yuewu turned around, looking like a couple in love caught by acquaintances. Hello, I'm Yuewu's friend. I came early at her invitation to help set up the party. Qinxing extended his hoof and shook hooves with Yuewu's father. I hope you treat Yuewu well. He turned and walked away. Qinxing's face flushed instantly. Can I really do this? This was the first question that popped into his mind. He shook off these thoughts, firmly believing he was a responsible horse who didn't want to let this happy moment slip away. If I could marry Yuewu. Qinxing looked at Yuewu and had to admit that the more he looked at her, the more he felt they were a perfect match. Of course, his earlier thoughts about being a burden were already forcibly erased from his mind. It's been so many months. It shouldn't be considered a burden anymore, right? Don't mind my dad. He actually likes you, just expresses it strangely. Oh, okay. Please thank your father for his affection. Qinxing wasn't sure what he was saying anymore. Just as the two were about to feel awkward again, Yuewu's graduate student friends and her teachers arrived at the gate. Oh, I'll go greet them first. You take a break. After saying this, Yuewu hurried to the door. By the time she had greeted most of the little horses, it was around 3 in the afternoon, and the dozens of dishes ordered by Yuewu's father had been delivered directly to Yuewu's house from the Canterlot Royal Hotel. Of course, they were pulled by horses. Qinxing didn't expect that there would be something like delivery in this world, but thinking about it, how could such a big business opportunity not excite any horse? After Yuewu's father expressed his gratitude to the guests, the party officially began. The little horses chatted and laughed, while the teachers had friendly exchanges with Yuewu's parents and Yuewu. Qinxing and her friends played games, making the whole party enjoyable for every little horse. During the party, a small incident occurred. While they were having fun, Chinching noticed a group of little horses dressed in white coats passing by the entrance of Yuewu's yard. About 20 little horses rushed toward the distance. And Chinching recognized that direction as likely being the Canterlot train station, the place he had exited when he arrived in Canterlot from Ponyville. So many little horses. It seemed something big must have happened at the train station. However, Chinching didn't pay much attention to it, as his mind was filled with Yuewu's shy face, her well-proportioned body, and her exquisite purple-red hair. In short, he could only see Yuewu. He didn't want to think about anything else. As the party neared its end, Chinching looked at the rising moon. The shadow of the nightmare moon still hung over the moon. He knew she would escape tonight and imprison the royal big butt. Followed by the 6 rainbow cannons, and finally, the nightmare moon incident would come to a successful conclusion. At the end, everyone waited for Yuewu's father to announce the end of the party before leaving, and at that moment, Yuewu stepped onto a makeshift platform. And all the little horses' gaze focused on her, making her feel uncomfortable. So, Yuewu's parents also walked up to her side to cheer her on. Ahem, dear little horses. This party is coming to an end. Now I will proceed with the last thing of this party. Yuewu paused for a moment and continued, Chinching. When I started writing my thesis, I was very confused. I didn't know what to do or what kind of thesis I needed to write to graduate smoothly. I could only run aimlessly to the library every day, feeling helpless and desperate. At this moment, all the little horses quieted down and listened intently to Yuewu's speech. And many were already watching Chinching's reaction, sensing something was about to happen. Chinching felt it too. He was very nervous and excited, as this was the first time in both his lives that someone, well, a horse, was confessing to him. Chinching was thrilled and quietly listened to Yuewu's next words. At this moment, Yuewu and Chinching locked eyes, and it felt like there were only the two of them in the world. Then, Chinching, you appeared in my life. You not only helped me find literature for my thesis, but also actively communicated with me, restoring my confidence. Throughout these months, you have consistently discussed the mysteries of magic with me every day. I think I have fallen in love with you, Chinching. Would you be willing to walk toward a future that belongs to us both? At this moment, Chinching felt like a girl being confessed to, but more than that. He was touched. Chinching took a deep breath, faced Yuewu, and said loudly, I do. The surroundings erupted with enthusiastic cheers, and under the congratulations of the other horses, Chinching ran to the platform, extended his hooves, and embraced Yuewu. Chinching felt happy to have found a partner he could wholeheartedly commit to. The final activity concluded successfully, and the invited little horses gradually left after offering their blessings, while Chinching, Yuewu, and her parents cleaned up the aftermath. After finishing up, Chinching, Yuewu, and her parents went to the living room together. Don't disappoint Xiaowu's trust in you. Stop saying such discouraging things. Hello, Chinching. Although we would love to chat with you more, it's getting late, and we should be going to bed, right? Yuewu's mother winked at Yuewu. The implication was clear to both Yuewu and Chinching, who lowered their heads, blushing, and were urged by Yuewu's mother to head to Yuewu's room. Upon opening the door, Chinching found Yuewu's room very tidy. To the left by the door was a large bookshelf. Facing the door against the wall was Yuewu's desk, and opposite it was a large bed with only a wardrobe beside it. Very simple, very clean, was Chinching's first impression of Yuewu's room. The door closed gently, and the light from the lamp was a bit glaring. Yuewu and Chinching faced each other, and the two horses quietly stared at each other for a few minutes. At this moment, Morningstar tightly embraced Moondance. After a brief surprise, Moondance also hugged Morningstar. Morningstar pressed his nose against Moondance's fur, greedily inhaling its fragrance, the unique scent that belonged only to Moondance, taking it all in. Moondance, I am so grateful that you like me. I feel like the happiest little pony in the world right now. Morningstar and Moondance gazed into each other's eyes. I am also very lucky that you like me, Morningstar. The two ponies looked at each other, and Moondance closed her eyes, leaning slightly forward. Morningstar slowly closed his eyes as well, kissing Moondance. Their long tongues intertwined, greedily tasting everything. Morningstar and Moondance lay on the bed. Morningstar, should we continue or sleep first? Morningstar noticed that Moondance seemed a bit nervous and said, Moondance, let's sleep first. We've gone through too much today, and we've stayed up for quite a long time. I'll make it up to you tomorrow night, okay? Moondance blushed and nodded. Morningstar gently caressed Moondance's face, removed her glasses, and used magic to turn off the lights. The two ponies snuggled together and fell into a deep sleep. The next day, Morningstar groggily woke up in Moondance's bed. He couldn't believe that he and Moondance could be in a romantic relationship. This feels really good. Although Morningstar didn't know if it was due to hormones, he really wanted to stay cuddled up with Moondance. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, he experienced love. He didn't know how to handle it, but he understood that he needed to treat Moondance well and make her happy every day. Morningstar gently stroked Moondance's purplish-red fur, greedily inhaling the fragrance she emitted. He felt like he couldn't think normally anymore, as his brain temporarily stopped functioning due to hormones. Is it still very late? I thought I could sleep until dawn. Morningstar originally wanted to continue holding Moondance and sleep, but suddenly, a flutter in his heart struck him, and an ominous premonition flooded his mind. I don't feel like I've only slept for a little while. He was then stunned. The alarm clock showed that it was already past 10 in the morning. Yet outside was still pitch black, with the moon hanging in the sky. For over 1,000 years, Princess Celestia had risen the sun on time every day. But today she had apparently skipped. Besides the possibility that she was playing or forgot, there was only one explanation. Nightmare Moon had succeeded. Morningstar realized that Nightmare Moon had actually succeeded. However, at this moment, Morningstar still intended to deceive himself a bit. He thought that the others might not have reached the castle of the two sisters yet, after all. It took him a long time to get out of the endless forest. But according to the plot at the beginning of Season 1 of My Little Pony, it seems they didn't take long at all. He came up with another theory that he had taken so long in the endless forest because his poor sense of direction led him to take many detours with Little Days. And Little Days' directions might not have been accurate either. No, I need to act immediately. He didn't know if they had reached the castle of the two sisters. But he had to be fully prepared. Just as Morningstar was about to wake Moondance and her parents, he heard shouting and the clashing of weapons around him. For the Queen of the Night. For Princess Celestia. Upon hearing these two phrases and combining them with the plots of the game and anime, he realized that the Nightmares were attacking Canterlot. How is this possible? Morningstar felt strange and surprised. He didn't know exactly what was happening, but he knew he needed to escape Canterlot quickly, because once Nightmare Moon defeated Princess Celestia, the world would be plunged into eternal night. However, all the animals and crops that needed sunlight would wither without it, and ultimately, Equestria would face riots due to food shortages. Nightmare Moon would surely send the Nightmares to suppress it, whether helping the remnants of Celestia or Nightmare Moon. He could no longer live a peaceful life with Moondance. I must defeat Nightmare Moon and restore the normal timeline. Morningstar made up his mind. Chapter 16. Nightmare Moon's victory. Morningstar's death and return. The sounds of battle outside awakened the sleeping Moondance. She looked out the window and noticed something strange happening. Morningstar, what's going on outside? Moondance asked in confusion. Morningstar quickly jumped out of bed, grabbed Moondance, and dashed downstairs to wake her still motionless parents. The four ponies gathered in the living room, and Morningstar hastily explained the situation to them. This news left the other three ponies in extreme shock, as they couldn't believe that Princess Celestia could possibly fail. Their son had lost. When they went outside, they discovered that the scene was already chaotic, with Nightmares and the Royal Guard engaged in fierce combat, and ponies running aimlessly in the streets. Morningstar led Moondance and her family toward the outskirts of Canterlot, knowing that the train station had likely been occupied by the Nightmares sent by Nightmare Moon. They needed to escape Canterlot quickly and find the others and the elements of harmony to defeat Nightmare Moon. Don't move, don't resist. The Nightmares blocking Morningstar's path hadn't finished speaking when Morningstar quickly blasted them away with a beam of light. He didn't intend to kill these Nightmares, just to escape this cursed place as quickly as possible. Hurry. Under Morningstar's lead, the Nightmares surrounding them were all knocked away, easily defeated. The four ponies charged through, with no nightmare being a match for Morningstar. As he absorbed magical particles, he generated a shield to protect Moondance's family and was always ready to defeat any nightmare that dared to come close. Just as they were about to leave the Canterlot area, he suddenly crashed into something, making him see stars. Morningstar shook his head and saw a barrier in front of him, feeling puzzled. Looking up, he was astonished to find that the entire Canterlot was covered by a light blue shield. Damn Nightmare Moon. Morningstar recognized this as Nightmare Moon's doing. He then pointed his horn at the barrier and concentrated all the magical particles in his body into his horn, releasing them in one go. Morningstar's hindhooves dug into the ground, and a massive beam of light shot forward, striking the light blue barrier. However, despite Morningstar's best efforts, he could only create some ripples on the surface of the shield. Morningstar, are you okay? We should hide now. Morningstar nodded. Since escaping Canterlot was impossible, they could only pray for a miracle. With Moondance's support, Morningstar headed toward a shopping mall. Are you all okay? Morningstar turned around to see a Pegasus wearing a helmet, who appeared to be a member of the Royal Guard. The Pegasus rushed over, with some blood on his head and back, looking like he had just finished a battle. We're fine for now. What's the situation in Canterlot? The situation is grim. A group of Nightmares appeared suddenly at night and caught us off guard. Captain Silvershield is currently engaged in battle with these nightmare rebels. Where should we gather the civilians? Morningstar was exhausted and just wanted to find a place to recover his magic. In that large supermarket over there. The captain has gathered the rescued civilians there. Morningstar looked in the direction the guard pointed and headed there with them. But due to the nightmares that appeared along the way, the 4 ponies could only make their way to the supermarket by themselves. When they arrived, they found the giant supermarket was surrounded by a shield. It should be the shimmering shield of silver armor. After receiving permission, Morningstar entered the shield and took a brief rest. Morningstar felt that all of this was unreal. He never expected that one of the hypotheses he least wanted to happen had actually come true. Nightmare Moon had defeated the Six and taken control of Equestria. How did she defeat the Six? Did the elements of harmony even work? Morningstar's mind was in chaos. There were injured ponies everywhere nearby, and he found it strange that Nightmare Moon was capturing these civilian ponies, as they were theoretically her subjects. Captain Silver Armor. The surrounding civilians, except for those taken by Night Stalker, were almost all here. Morningstar saw Silver Armor commanding the battle from a high platform. We are surrounded by Night Stalkers here. And now that we are trapped by the shield outside Canterlot, we can't break out. That guard said anxiously. All right, I understand. Have the remaining royal guards enter the shield immediately. We need to seek help from other areas. We can't just sit here and wait. Morningstar saw Silver Armor deep in thought. At that moment, a sound came from outside the shield that Morningstar couldn't even imagine. Ha ha ha. Outside the shield. A black cloud floated from afar, taking shape in front of the shield. The one responsible for the entire incident was none other than Nightmare Moon. I have received orders from Princess Celestia to apprehend you, Nightmare Moon. Do not resist futilely. Nightmare Moon outside the shield paused for a moment, then continued to laugh, as if this was part of her unique personality trait. Ha 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 ha. My wicked sister and her student have already been defeated and imprisoned by me. You have no chance of winning. Ha ha ha. Silver Armor's eyes were filled with disbelief. He couldn't believe that Princess Celestia had actually lost. Morningstar was also at a loss. He could only barely stand and had no way to participate in the attack. Damn it. Morningstar glared fiercely at Nightmare Moon outside, beginning to quickly absorb magical particles, feeling the flow of magical particles around him. The other ponies began to turn their heads to look at Morningstar. Morningstar first stored the magical particles, then rapidly compressed them to accommodate more magical particles. The ponies were astonished by Morningstar's magical talent. While Nightmare Moon outside was somewhat surprised, she hadn't expected an unexpected surprise here. This pony seems familiar. A brief moment of contemplation appeared in Nightmare Moon's eyes as she searched her memory for this pony before her. I remember something from the notes written by Starshine. Morningstar quickly filled his body with magical particles. His entire being was screaming, with his skin, veins, and organs crying out in pain. He could not let the Moon Dance family be captured, nor could he allow the stable and peaceful Ponyville to fall into disarray. Since they have already failed, then it's my turn. Morningstar fixed his gaze on Nightmare Moon. Then, with a teleportation spell, he transported himself above Nightmare Moon while gathering all the magical particles at the tip of his horn. Morningstar aimed his horn at Nightmare Moon, and his speed startled all the ponies present. At that moment, Nightmare Moon also reacted. She removed the shield covering Canterlot and concentrated magic to defend against the next attack from Morningstar. A massive beam of light shot towards Nightmare Moon's face, colliding with her shield and knocking her down to the ground. Captain Silver Armor was particularly shocked. The magical talent of this unicorn before him was terrifying, as shocking as that of his sister, Twilight Sparkle. Morningstar once again released all the magical particles, then fell towards the ground, where Moon Dance quickly caught him with magic, holding him in her embrace. Morningstar, what are you doing? Tears streamed down Moon Dance's eyes, dripping onto Morningstar's nose. They mingled with the blood flowing from Morningstar's eyes. Morningstar slowly opened his eyes, looking at the pony crying for him. He felt warmth in his heart. Morningstar thought that the feeling of protecting others was quite nice. He was satisfied with his first real battle. Even though the rapid circulation of magical particles twice in a short time had severely injured his veins and organs, rendering him unable to use magic for at least a month or two. It seems like I am still useful. Suddenly, a huge light blue beam burst out from the dust and smoke in front of him, crashing into Silver Armor's shield. Silver Armor did not expect that Nightmare Moon could still have the ability to resist under such powerful magic. Instantly, the pressure on his horn increased dramatically. As cracks began to appear in the shield, the entire pink shield shattered completely. The ponies looked at the open space ahead, and as the dust settled, they saw Nightmare Moon. Her blue armor was slightly damaged, but it was not significant. Now, Nightmare Moon's face was filled only with anger, unforgiving rage. She glared angrily at Morningstar, who was staring at her in disbelief, wanting to show this foolish pony what a villain truly was. You foolish little pony dare to challenge my authority. Do you think you are more powerful than my foolish sister and her even more foolish student? Morningstar never expected that his strongest attack at the moment would only knock off a few pieces of her armor. Stop, Nightmare Moon. Silver Armor saw Nightmare Moon charging towards Morningstar and immediately teleported in front of him, raising a shield to block Nightmare Moon. But to everyone's astonishment, Nightmare Moon managed to break Silver Armor's shield with just her hooves, kicking him aside. The surrounding royal guards wanted to help, but they were met by the Night Stalker troops that had been following Nightmare Moon all along. After Silver Armor was kicked away, there was no pony left in front of Morningstar to defend against Nightmare Moon's attack. Morningstar watched as the hooves drew closer to him, suddenly feeling that everything was so magical, so unreal. Then, heading to Ponyville to continue his studies and build good relationships with the Six. Then going to Canterlot for further education, and finally encountering Moon Dance, who confessed her feelings for him right before the summer celebration. But just a day later, everything changed. Princess Celestia had failed as he had imagined, but he never expected the Six to actually lose. Although he felt that a crisis might arise, he never thought they would lose. Scenes from Ponyville flashed before Morningstar's eyes like a revolving lantern. And in front of Morningstar, Moon Dance stepped forward, putting up a purple-red magical shield in front of him. Morningstar was taken aback for a moment, then reached out a hoof to try to stop Moon Dance's actions, which were like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Moon Dance predictably flew out, her glasses shattering, crashing into her parents. No. Morningstar wanted to run in front of Moon Dance to see how she was doing, but the next moment, he was lifted by Nightmare Moon, receiving blow after blow. As Morningstar felt the solid hooves striking his face, he felt a deep sense of helplessness. He had not realized how great the gap between him and the villain was. He had overestimated himself. The pain that pierced to the bone attacked Morningstar's brain fiercely, nearly causing him to crash. But now Morningstar had no way out. He could only proceed this way. With each blow Nightmare Moon landed, her mood improved slightly as she looked at the bloodied and battered little pony before her, feeling very pleased. Now do you understand the consequences of defying your queen? While I'm in a better mood, if you surrender quickly, I will go easier on you. If there are any more rebellious ponies, this will be your end. Nightmare Moon lifted Morningstar, casually tossing him to the ground. As the endless night Mares surged forward, the royal guards were outnumbered and captured one after another. They watched in anger as Morningstar was beaten to a pulp, followed by a deep sense of helplessness. They could no longer contend with this queen. Morningstar rolled a few times, and Moon Dance, supported by her parents, rushed to his side and helped him up. Morningstar was now unable to think. The only thing he wanted was to die quickly. If only this terrifying scene could be saved like in version 0, then everything would truly be over. The thought of potentially being forever ruled by Nightmare Moon, never able to rise again, sent a shiver down his spine. Morningstar looked at Moon Dance, who had a wound on her face, her hair disheveled, and she looked at him with deep concern, wanting to say something. Meanwhile, Moon Dance's parents also wanted to take him for treatment as soon as possible, fearing irreversible damage if they delayed. Morningstar shook his head, his gaze fixed on Nightmare Moon. She looked around, and after seeing no little ponies daring to oppose her, she let out another loud laugh, her sharp voice piercing every pony's ears, causing all the civilian ponies to tremble in fear, unsure of what to do. Nightmare Moon noticed the barely breathing little pony again. She felt as if she had seen him before, but upon reflection, it seemed impossible. After thinking it over without results, she decided to stop dwelling on it. Morningstar struggled to rise, once again using the quick flow spell, commanding the surrounding magical particles to converge into his body. His organs were wailing. His blood vessels had reached their limit, only able to sustain basic functions. He gathered the magical particles once more at his horn, preparing for a final showdown with Nightmare Moon. Nightmare Moon saw the nearly lifeless blue pony and felt a satisfaction akin to a cat toying with a captured mouse. A sense of victory in her grasp. Ha ha ha. It's been a long time since I've encountered such a strange little pony like you. I don't know why you seek death so desperately, but I will let you witness the magical gap between unicorns and alicorns. Nightmare Moon lowered her center of gravity. Her long, sharp horn aimed at Morningstar as she began to gather energy for an attack. Morningstar had reached his limit. He knew that even if he survived, he would never be able to use magic again. He decided to face Nightmare Moon with a heart full of anger and tragic resolve. Uncertain of how long both sides had been charging up, Morningstar could no longer feel time. Moon Dance was desperately shouting at him from the side, tears streaming down her face as she cried out for him not to take such a path to self-destruction. Her parents, though reluctant, felt helpless and could only silently pray for Morningstar. He silently thanked Moon Dance and her parents, although he wanted to continue being their son-in-law. Perhaps it was fate that Morningstar in this world no longer had a chance. He could only place his hope on the timeline's save point, praying it wouldn't be after Nightmare Moon had defeated him 6 times. Otherwise, he would truly be in despair. Morningstar felt time dragging on slowly as he thought of many things, recalling their meeting in the library, then Moondance's confession at the party. Everything was too fleeting. If I had tried just a bit harder back then, would the outcome have been different? Ignoring the pain signals his body sent to his brain, he smiled at Moondance just as 2 blue beams collided. To the outside ponies, the entire process from charging to attack took less than 5 seconds. Perhaps something like a revolving lantern could actually happen? The energy collided violently, creating a massive gust of wind that scattered the little ponies captured by the Nightmares, who were unconcerned for their queen's safety. The ground behind Morningstar was struck, creating a large crater, and the flying dirt raised a cloud of dust. Morningstar felt a part of his body was already missing. He looked down and discovered his left front hoof was nowhere to be found. No. Moondance watched in despair as Morningstar, with his broken left front hoof, was sent flying, crashing against a building's wall, then falling onto the hard ground, raising a cloud of dust and splattering blood. Moondance couldn't understand why. After mustering the courage to confess to the stallion she loved just the day before, he now lay in a pool of blood. Would the outcome be different if they hadn't resisted? Moondance pondered this question repeatedly, struggling to understand why Morningstar was so determined to seek death. But at that moment, she no longer wanted to think about such trivial matters. The stallion she loved lay in a pool of blood, and she felt utterly powerless. Anger filled her. She hated Nightmare Moon, and she hated her own helplessness. After a dizzying spin, Morningstar collapsed to the ground. So painful, so painful, so painful. Morningstar realized his left hoof was broken. A hole appeared on his left side, and his beautiful tail had long since vanished. He could no longer turn his neck to observe his surroundings. The rapid loss of blood caused his body temperature to plummet, and he felt cold, his consciousness gradually fading. So cold, so painful, so regretful. Is this the end? Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Moondance's heart-wrenching expression, the terrified looks in the eyes of the little ponies, and Nightmare Moon's triumphant smile. Nightmare Moon slowly approached, her blue-black iron hooves stepping into the blood without care. She leaned down beside Morningstar and whispered in his ear, "How does it feel to know your fate for opposing me?" Morningstar could only see Nightmare Moon approaching, but could hear nothing. He could only quietly listen as Death's scythe loomed over him, ready to take his worthless life. The last image he saw before closing his eyes was Moondance kicking away the nightmare that had restrained her, rushing towards him, while Nightmare Moon prepared to launch an attack at her. Morningstar didn't understand why. After only a few months of interaction and learning, Moondance would so recklessly rush to him. A tear fell from Morningstar's eye, mixing with his blood. Finally, due to excessive blood loss, Morningstar died. Keek. How does it feel to see the little pony you placed your hopes on die? Humph. I believe you will thwart your plans next time, Dark. Not necessarily light. Every time you reset this world, you consume a considerable amount of power, right? If you reset it a few more times, you might not even need me to strike. You would have already perished. Ha 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 ha. Do you think that after your agent cursed this world, you can rest easy and continue to be arrogant forever, Dark? Your plans will ultimately be defeated by Harmony and the righteous little ponies. Oh, Light, you truly sadden me. It seems you still don't understand how powerful the force of destruction is. Let us see if that little guy can bear the fate of saving this world. Ha! In a chaotic space, one side radiated dazzling light, while the other exuded evil darkness, both sides evenly matched. But keen observers could see that the dark side was subtly suppressing the light. The balance of light and dark among the little ponies tilted once again. But what disaster would this bring to the world this time? Ah! Morningstar suddenly sat up in bed, clutching his left front hoof, a sharp pain crashing through his mind. Ha ha ha. Morningstar took deep breaths, calming his wildly racing heart just a bit. Warmth and comfort flowed back through his body into his brain. Morningstar looked around. Everything around him was exactly the same as in the house he rented in Canterlot. Then he realized something and suddenly turned his head towards the window. There were no little ponies outside, and the sky still had a bright moon, the mark of Nightmare Moon still on the moon. Everything was calm as before. Then Morningstar hurriedly jumped out of bed, grabbed the calendar, and looked at the date. December 30th, 999. Only one day left. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. He thought for a moment and realized he could now stop Nightmare Moon at the source by warning Princess Celestia, letting her join him in defeating Nightmare Moon. If that doesn't work, I can warn the Six or escort them to the castle of the two sisters to obtain the elements of harmony. Morningstar temporarily set 2 plans, and he felt that the most critical thing was why the Six had failed to stop Nightmare Moon. If this time fails, it's over. This time, I must save this world. Chapter 18. Return to remind Moondance to be cautious. Attacked on the way to the town, Morningstar knew time was very tight, and he couldn't afford to wash up or anything like that. He briefly thought about it and decided to inform Moondance first. After all, if he just left, he was afraid of running into the problems Twilight Sparkle might face. And then he would quickly take the train to Ponyville. In his plan, it would be best to arrive at the castle of the two sisters before Princess Celestia confronted Nightmare Moon. I hope Princess Celestia can understand me. But then he thought, if Celestia wants to make friends with Twilight Sparkle to activate the elements of harmony, she might not agree to my request. I should hurry to the castle of the two sisters. Morningstar didn't know what Celestia would do. All he could do now was to do his best to get to the castle of the two sisters. Morningstar rushed out the door. At this moment, Celestia was raising the sun as usual. He rushed forward and knocked hard on the door. Bang, bang, bang. A sound of hooves came from the second floor to the first, and Moondance opened the door. Morningstar saw that Moondance was still rubbing her eyes, looking like she had been woken up by him. Morningstar silently apologized to Moondance in his heart, then quickly thought about how to say something to minimize the impact on her. He had to be very careful, otherwise, disaster could strike quietly when you were the happiest and deliver a thunderous blow. He saw Moondance drowsily opening the door, and thinking that she would confess to him tomorrow made him feel unrealistic. My own power is ultimately too weak. I need to work hard to enhance my strength. Until I become stronger, I cannot protect everything I cherish. Thinking of this, Morningstar clenched his hooves tightly, feeling disappointed in himself for being so weak. Before I am capable of protecting Moondance and everything I cherish, I should not let love interfere with my heart and mind. Morningstar made up his mind to refrain from getting any closer to Moondance for now. He felt ashamed of agreeing to Moondance's request in a moment of impulse. He believed it was likely just his genes making him do that. Once the hormones faded, there might be irreconcilable conflicts between him and Moondance. So to avoid regretting it, Morningstar thought it best to focus on helping the Six through the countless crises ahead, and perhaps when they grew a little older, the outcome would be different. I cannot rely on this way to win their hearts. I must love my beloved mare in an upright manner. I cannot make rash judgments, especially not jump into a relationship just because of a momentary impulse. That would be irresponsible to both parties. Morningstar shook his head. He had decided that saving the world was more important for now, and other emotional and hormonal issues could be left for the future Morningstar to deal with. Morningstar, I remember I didn't tell you where I lived, right? Morningstar was taken aback and thought carefully. It seemed he had indeed never been to Moondance's home. Usually, they communicated in the library and the Royal CAF. It couldn't be that after having dinner, you secretly protected me to know where I lived, right? Moondance showed a bright smile, thinking that the little pony in front of her must have secretly followed her to know her home. Of course, if she said it directly, it would probably be very awkward, so Moondance rephrased it. I definitely care about you, Moondance. Morningstar released his hooves, and Moondance's face was filled with a blush. She didn't know why, after discussing with her parents for a long time. Her mother kept whispering to her father that he finally reluctantly agreed to give Morningstar a probationary period. Moondance was planning to hold a graduation party and tell Morningstar today when he suddenly appeared in front of her and directly hugged her. Was he not afraid that her father would come down from the second floor and hit him? Moondance was full of questions, wondering why Morningstar was so bold. Moondance, please listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Morningstar paused, pulling Moondance out of her daze. Next, I will take the train to Ponyville to stop a crisis that might threaten all of Ponyville. No matter what, please be sure to go to Canterlot Palace today to inform the royal guards that there may be an attack by Nightmare Moon on Canterlot after midnight tomorrow. Please prepare in advance and don't let a sudden attack disrupt your formation. Moondance was shocked to receive such alarming news. She was even more confused about what was wrong with Morningstar. Was he sick? Seeing Moondance's puzzled expression, Morningstar repeated what he had just told her. You must inform the royal guards, and tonight your family should seek refuge in a supermarket or the palace. Be sure to pay attention to safety. Seeing that Moondance hadn't reacted yet, Morningstar became a little anxious. Okay. Moondance saw the urgency in Morningstar's eyes. She understood this little pony in front of her and believed he wouldn't deceive her about such things. Moondance swallowed, took a deep breath, and looked into Morningstar's eyes, saying, Okay, I will keep my promise to you. Then Moondance's mood began to plummet. She knew this meant Morningstar wouldn't attend tomorrow's party, which also meant she couldn't confess to him. Suddenly, a thought popped into Moondance's mind. Should she confess to Morningstar now? She knew she couldn't let Morningstar be distracted at this time. Seeing that Moondance had already agreed to him, Morningstar decisively thanked her, then mentally replayed the scene of Canterlot train station, and with a flash, Morningstar disappeared. Moondance closed her eyes due to the flash of Morningstar's teleportation. When she opened them again, there was nothing left. Only a trace of dust left by Morningstar's teleportation. She looked at the place where Morningstar had left, stunned for a moment, then shook her head. Moondance didn't expect Morningstar to be so skilled in using teleportation magic. It seemed she would have to practice with him more in the future. Cheer up. Moondance, Morningstar still has tasks for you. You can't let him down. Moondance told her parents, who were also very shocked. And as they listened to Moondance recount Morningstar's words, they wore faces of disbelief. After Moondance's repeated persuasion, they decided to trust her. If Morningstar dared to deceive them, they planned to have Moondance invite him home for questioning. After informing her parents, Moondance quickly ran to the palace entrance and relayed Morningstar's words to the royal guards, urging them to prepare in advance. Although the royal guards didn't think any pony would dare to attack Canterlot openly, and found Moondance's mention of Nightmare Moon strange, as they seemed to have never heard of that species. They still smiled at Uawu and said they would increase the patrol frequency at Canterlot tonight. After all, if a pony felt unsafe, then it made sense to patrol more often. By the time Uawu finished shopping, it was already noon. Uawu glanced in that direction but didn't think much of it. The sun, which Princess Celestia had raised, still hung in the sky, calm and peaceful as it had been 2 hours ago. Morningstar instantly teleported to the front of Canterlot train station, rushed to the ticket counter, and asked when the next train to Ponyville would depart. Upon learning that the next train would leave in less than an hour, Morningstar was very happy. This way, he could at least help the Six through their crisis. He believed that their friendship was unbreakable. Morningstar hurriedly bought a ticket and anxiously waited on the platform. Time sometimes passed very quickly, but it felt too slow for Morningstar right now. Every 5 minutes, he would glance at the clock hanging at Canterlot train station. Afraid of missing the train, he looked ahead, hoping the train would arrive soon. 50 minutes later, Morningstar saw a train slowly approaching from a distance. As the train came to a stop, the conductor began checking tickets at the corresponding carriages. Morningstar quickly stood up and ran towards the line of ponies boarding the train. Though he was anxious, he still patiently queued up to board. He didn't want to get caught for cutting in line. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. On one of the tracks, a remote-controlled magical bomb lay quietly on a bridge, waiting for its target. Surrounding it was the Nightmare Brigade, which had already begun to lie in wait days ago. Due to the power of the moon, during the night, Nightmare Moon could directly issue orders to the nightmares loyal to her from the moon. Morningstar sat in his seat, lost in thought, staring blankly out the window. With a hissing sound, the train slowly departed from the station. Morningstar was very anxious, but he knew that unnecessary worry was pointless. Taking a deep breath, he planned to calm himself down. But for some reason, Morningstar felt inexplicably nervous inside. He didn't know why. No matter what happens, I will face it head on. The train left Canterlot, heading towards Ponyville. At the same time, messengers from various places were being captured to prevent Canterlot from communicating with the locals. Once our queen defeats the vile Daybreaker, we will spread out and occupy various places across Equestria. Any pony that poses a threat to the plan will be detained, waiting for the Queen's orders. It was all that wretched pony's fault. We had to revise our plans. The leader of the Nightmares carefully explained the situation to his subordinates. In short, cut off communication between the capital and the locals, and take them down one by one. Morningstar, having nothing else to do, continued to gaze out the window. At this point, the train was not far from a viaduct when suddenly, a loud explosion occurred, followed by the train making an emergency stop. Morningstar fell to the ground due to inertia, and just then, with a strange scream, the train's windows shattered, and several nightmares charged in. Every pony, don't move. Lay down and behave. Any resistance will face the Queen's punishment. The leading nightmare shouted loudly. Morningstar was momentarily stunned. What is going on? Are the nightmares really this extreme? They actually dared to attack the railway with an explosion? Morningstar didn't plan to be captured, so as soon as the leading nightmare finished speaking, he teleported to the top of the already stopped train. The nightmares were momentarily taken aback. They didn't expect a pony to escape in such a short time. Call the nightmares lying in ambush outside. Make sure to stop that pony. Standing on the train's roof, Morningstar saw many nightmares rushing towards him from both sides of the railway. He knew he could only try to run into the nearby woods and follow the railway towards Ponyville. Hopefully, it's not too late. Morningstar quickly ran towards the section of the railway that had been blown apart and used teleportation magic to cross over. But he didn't expect that there would also be nightmares lying in ambush on this side. He cast a shield while running forward, ready to knock away any nightmares that got too close. Don't let him escape. More than 20 nightmares charged towards Morningstar from all directions. He used his shield to protect himself while also attacking the nightmares with quick-firing but low-power beam magic, conserving his magical particles. Oof. Oh. Morningstar continuously knocked away the nightmares. But the ones that had boarded the train left a few behind to control the ponies, while the rest followed the leading nightmare towards him. Morningstar once again teleported through the encirclement of nightmares and dashed into the forest. The nightmares split into two groups. One searched for Morningstar from the air, while the other closely followed him on the ground, planning to exhaust his stamina. Morningstar knew what they were trying to do, but he couldn't fly and couldn't outrun them. In the end, he formed a protective circle with his shield, while the surrounding nightmares closed in on him. Why aren't you running anymore, kid? Curse it, curse it. Morningstar radiated a sense of malice. He hated these damn nightmares for disrupting his plans. At that moment, the previously dormant black magical particles seemed to have met water, becoming active. Chapter 19. Morningstar captured, rescued by the rebels. And the Forbidden Library gains abundant methods. Morningstar's body began to emit a black aura, and the surrounding nightmares felt it was strange, but still tightened their encirclement. Get away. Morningstar released his shield, increasing the output of his horn, aiming at the nightmares. I must defeat them. The nightmares didn't expect him to suddenly unleash such powerful magic. Some were hit by the beams, bleeding on the spot, while others couldn't dodge in time and had their wings broken. Morningstar recklessly expended magical particles, and the beams he fired contained a trace of black aura, greatly increasing their power. After defeating a dozen nightmares, they began to retreat, while Morningstar replenished his magical particles with a quick flow of magic, although the black particles were still slowly depleting. At that moment, while Morningstar was wildly attacking the nightmares, one of them lying on a tree pulled out a launcher and aimed at him. With a gunshot, a circular ring shot toward Morningstar. As the ring flew close to him, it quickly latched onto his horn like a magnet. In an instant, Morningstar felt that the magical particles within him could no longer be released through his horn. He was stunned for a moment and tried to use teleportation magic, only to find he could no longer use it. Seeing this, the surrounding nightmares rushed in to bind him tightly and gave him a beating. Morningstar's last memory before losing consciousness was of the nightmares tying him up and tossing him into a cart. Although they wanted to execute him immediately, they held back. Facing their fallen comrades, they buried them in the ground, and the injured went to their hideout for treatment. They didn't dare underestimate Morningstar, so they decided to keep a close watch on him, assigning 2 nightmares to monitor him and prevent any small movements. It hurt so much. Morningstar's consciousness gradually returned. He found himself thrown into a dungeon, with iron chains securing his hind hooves. He looked around. This should be a cell. There was only one iron window and an iron door, along with a bed and a restroom. He wanted to use magic to break the chains, but there was no way to do so. Is this it? Is it going to end this time? Morningstar felt very unwilling. How could there be an ambush this time? Damn it. At that moment, he remembered something. He had seen some hospital staff heading to the train station during the decoration party on December 31st. Now that I think about it, they must have placed the bomb next to the train tracks at the station and then blew the tracks apart. A bunch of fanatic villains. So why didn't they do that this time? Morningstar pondered for a moment and concluded that it was most likely that they had changed their plan. Or perhaps they hadn't placed any bombs at all because their actions had changed. Morningstar stopped thinking about these things. He now had only one thought: to escape. He didn't believe this time would yield any different results. He had to get away, or else only meaningless death awaited him. He first tried to see if he could remove the damned iron ring from his head, pulling at it with his hooves, but it was impossible. He then tested his range of movement. It wasn't much, just enough to touch the iron door, but nothing more. At that moment, a nightmare approached, looking at Morningstar inside with eyes full of disgust and anger. Your food. The nightmare pushed a metal tray of food under the iron door and then walked away. As Morningstar ate the not-so-tasty food, he contemplated how he could escape. When Morningstar realized there was nothing he could do, he gave up. Is there really only the option of suicide? Morningstar sat on the hard bed, considering whether he should take action against himself. If it's too late, everything will be set in stone, and it will all be over. But he shook his head, dismissing his own thoughts. He decided to wait for a turning point, for someone to rescue him, or for him to be taken out to be executed by Nightmare Moon. Days passed, and since the sun had set on December 31st, it had not risen again. The world had once again entered an era of eternal night. Morningstar waited, and during his idle time, he read magic books in his mind. As time went by, Morningstar noticed that the food the nightmare provided was getting worse and worse, and now there was only some moss-like food left. Morningstar took a few bites, feeling a wave of nausea. He wanted to vomit. but he thought it was also quite meaningless to starve to death. So he could only force himself to eat the unpalatable food. During this time, Morningstar was blindfolded and moved to a new prison, but for him, there was hardly any difference in the new prison, just a bed, an iron window, and an iron door, exactly like before. The only difference was that the walls here were made of crystal, making it impossible to break out by digging through the walls. Morningstar's guess was correct. After Nightmare Moon had ruled Equestria for a month, due to dissatisfaction with the increasingly worsening environmental crisis, uprisings began to break out everywhere, aiming to overthrow Nightmare Moon's rule. One day, Morningstar woke up early as usual, although he no longer knew what time it was. Outside the iron window, there was always that round bright moon shining on Ponyville. However, this day was different from usual. Today, no nightmare brought him any food. The prison was filled with the sobs of ponies, with hardly any other sounds. The nightmares who usually patrolled the prison had also disappeared without a trace. Now Morningstar was as thin as a skeleton, and the daily intake of some moss barely satisfied the nutritional needs of a pony for a day. Is this the end? Suddenly, some chaotic sounds came from outside the iron door, followed by a loud crashing sound as the iron door fell in, startling Morningstar, whose heart felt like dead ash. He looked towards the iron door, and a purple pony with a red ribbon on its head rushed in. "Are you okay, friend?" Morningstar was quite surprised to see her, Starlight Glimmer. "I'm fine. May I ask what is happening now?" Seeing that Morningstar was still a bit dazed, Starlight Glimmer first used magic to break the shackles on Morningstar's hooves, and then removed his suppression ring. Morningstar instantly felt revitalized, sensing that he could use magic again with his horn. "Finally, I've waited for the rebels. But why is Nightmare Moon so extreme here? It doesn't feel like her." Morningstar breathed a sigh of relief, shook his head, and decided not to overanalyze these strange circumstances. He decided to absorb magical particles, ready to join the fight against Nightmare Moon at any moment. "What prison is this?" "We are liberating the Canterlot police prison this time. Now various rebel forces are gathering in Canterlot to prepare to end Nightmare Moon's cruel rule. Do you want to join our rebel army to attack Canterlot Castle?" Starlight Glimmer extended her hoof, her tone very confident, her eyes filled with hope. "I will join the rebel army, but I am currently too weak, so I may only be able to help clear the surrounding nightmares." Starlight Glimmer was very pleased because many of the ponies she had previously liberated from prisons had been scared out of their wits, and she could only send those ponies to the rear, where she would instill faith in them to help them regain their confidence. Starlight Glimmer gave Morningstar a red ribbon and then ran off to the next building to rescue the ponies inside. Morningstar tied the red ribbon on himself and joined Starlight Glimmer's rebel army against Nightmare Moon. After he opened several iron doors and released the ponies inside, he found that many of them were members of the Royal Guard. Moreover, Morningstar also saw a familiar pony. Shining Armor looked at Morningstar with eyes full of fighting spirit when the iron door opened. "Is Nightmare Moon still in Canterlot Castle?" Morningstar nodded and removed the suppression ring from his head, noticing that Shining Armor was recovering quickly. After briefly explaining the current situation, Shining Armor took the Royal Guard members to find Starlight Glimmer to jointly attack Canterlot Castle. After liberating this prison, Morningstar joined the rebel army and set off towards Canterlot Castle. Of course, he knew that this world was already riddled with holes, so he did not intend to directly eliminate Nightmare Moon, as Princess Celestia might turn into the Sun of Destruction due to excessive sorrow. He wanted to seize this great opportunity to head to the restricted section of the Canterlot Royal Library, believing that there was a way to convert magical particles inside. They hated Nightmare Moon, and naturally, they had no intention of being polite to the nightmares blocking their way. Starlight Glimmer teleported into the nightmares to wreak havoc, while Shining Armor assisted Starlight Glimmer, providing her with protection. "Charge! Brave ponies, let that damn Nightmare Moon see our power." Starlight Glimmer charged ahead, engaging with the nightmares. Under the equine naval tactics, the nightmares could not withstand the rebel forces and were overrun. Their target was the Royal Hall to defeat Nightmare Moon. Meanwhile, Morningstar took advantage of them, clearing the remaining defeated soldiers and turned to run towards the Royal Library. Bang! Morningstar spun around and kicked open the library's large door, running inside. He remembered that the restricted section had seals set by Princess Celestia and Luna, and since Celestia had been banished, her seal must be virtually ineffective. As for Nightmare Moon, Morningstar thought that Luna's seal was likely gone as well. Morningstar arrived deep within the Royal Library and saw the seal at the innermost part. Just as he had said, there was only the seal set by Celestia, and it was as fragile as a candle in the wind. Morningstar aimed his horn at the door and began to dismantle the seal. To his surprise, he found that the process of breaking the seal was just like proving a mathematical problem in reverse from conclusion to premise. It was as simple as a middle school problem. After several dozen seconds, the yellow seal in front of the door had completely disappeared. He opened the door, and inside was covered in dust. The retrieval device had long since broken down due to years of neglect. This surprised him, which meant that theoretically, he could store all the knowledge of the world in his mind. Of course, he didn't have the time or energy to read everything right now. Rather than just putting it all in his brain, it was better to focus on key knowledge. Morningstar took a quick glance and found that the books in this library were indeed all forbidden. Many books and scrolls were about witchcraft or magic that could harm the body. As long as it could enhance his strength, Morningstar stored it all in his mind. He specifically set aside a bookshelf to store the newly recorded knowledge to avoid any trouble in case he couldn't find it later. After about 30 minutes, the Cantrelot castle began to shake violently, and the howling of the nightmare moon echoed throughout the castle. Morningstar knew his reading time was up, and he needed to rush to support the rebels. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. He didn't want to experience the feeling of a broken hoof again. Of course, if the nightmare moon wasn't defeated this time, he would likely face torture and death, so it was better to test the new magic he had learned. Before he set off, he noticed two thin books on two pedestals at the end of the forbidden library, which looked like valuable items. So, Morningstar planned to take these two books with him. They were sealed with a seal set by Princess Celestia, but Morningstar easily broke them. He looked at the two books, his eyes widening. They were Guide to Dark Magic by Xingxuan and Methods of External Magic Use. Morningstar didn't expect to obtain the book about dark magic he had been longing for so easily. As for the other one, he planned to record it and deal with it later. As soon as he picked up the two books, the entire forbidden library began to tremble violently. Is this some kind of trap? He hurriedly grabbed the two treasures and fled the forbidden library, and just as he got outside, the library collapsed. If they didn't want anyone to get them, why set up such a mechanism? They could have just destroyed the two books directly, right? He shook his head, deciding not to think about it anymore. Morningstar spent 5 minutes recording the books and another 5 checking for errors. At that moment, a violent explosion occurred in a part of Cantrelot Castle. Morningstar hurried over, preparing for the final battle against Nightmare Moon. Chapter 20. Morningstar instructs to seek the element of harmony. The rebels unable to overcome Nightmare Moon before Morningstar arrived at the Royal Hall. He focused on how to convert magic particles and how to use dark magic. He found the following in Xingxuan's notes. Magic particles can be converted into dark magic particles, but the maximum amount that can be converted varies by individual constitution. My current research only indicates that this is related to each pony's magical talent. I have conducted numerous experiments, and converting too many magic particles may lead to irreversible harm or being consumed by darkness, turning into a mindless zombie. I am grateful my students rescued me. Otherwise, I might not have been able to pass my research findings to future generations of ponies. There is a method to quickly convert magic particles, which involves mobilizing all body organs to absorb a large amount of magic particles from the surroundings and converting them through the following method. This process will cause bodily harm and should be used with caution unless absolutely necessary. Of course, there is also a special constitution that can maximally contain dark magic particles, becoming an agent of darkness. I do not know if they still possess self-awareness. The pony I expelled long ago was such an example. After learning the conversion method, Morningstar found it was similar to formulas in physics, converting two substances into each other. It was not difficult, but unexpected. Morningstar also briefly understood the relationship between dark magic particles and dark magic. In simple terms, using dark magic particles to activate dark magic could maximize its power. Morningstar felt everything was ready, so he began to slowly convert magic particles while running. When he reached the Royal Hall, he found it had already turned into ruins. In front of him, Nightmare Moon stood on the throne confronting a group of unicorn ponies below, led by Starlight Glimmer and Silver Shield, along with two ponies that surprised Morningstar, Princess Melody and Moon Dance. The 6 were also conspicuously present, except for Sweetie Belle, who was following Rainbow Dash. The remaining 5 ponies each led a team, and the rebels had gathered together, with the 5 ponies surrounded by a sea of unicorns. The surrounding nightmares had been cleared, and the only target left for the group of ponies was Nightmare Moon on the throne. Morningstar burst in, drawing all the ponies' attention to him. Moon Dance was the first to charge out. Morningstar. Then she teleported to Morningstar's side and gave him a big hug. Morningstar noticed that Moon Dance had lost some of her scholarly demeanor and had become very capable, with well-defined muscles on her legs. She looked quite heroic. You've worked hard, Moon Dance. After separating from Moon Dance, they both teleported to face Starlight Glimmer, Silver Shield, Princess Melody, and the other 6. What is the situation now? Our rebel forces are exhausted. We sent them to deal with the remaining nightmares. The remaining unicorns will attack Nightmare Moon with us." Starlight Glimmer briefly summarized what had happened. Morningstar was relieved to see them there, which made things simpler. Obtain the element of harmony and defeat Nightmare Moon. Twilight, Rainbow, Sweetie Belle, Pinky, Rarity, you six need to find the whereabouts of the element of harmony immediately. We'll hold her off. Only the element of harmony can defeat her. Ha ha ha. Nightmare Moon let out her familiar laugh, echoing throughout the royal hall. Is this all the ponies you have? Nightmare Moon didn't bother to think about who the new blue pony was. She had originally planned to wait until the leaders of the rebels gathered in one place to take them all down. There are only a few of you foolish ponies. I suppose I should show you a bit of my true power. Nightmare Moon smiled at them, and her smile, with pure black skin beneath the blue armor, sent shivers down the spines of the rebels. Nightmare Moon, your doom is approaching. If you surrender, we will consider giving you a just trial. If you remain obstinate, only an abyss awaits you. Silver Shield shouted loudly at Nightmare Moon. I hope you can let me enjoy myself, Nightmare Moon said, her smile fading. She was already annoyed by these ponies. Morningstar worried that Nightmare Moon might escape, ordering the other unicorns to cast shield spells to cover the entire royal hall and prevent Nightmare Moon from fleeing. Nightmare Moon, concerned that the six might find the element of harmony, decided to settle this quickly, first dealing with these annoying ponies and then defeating those few troublesome ones again. Nightmare Moon flew into the sky and released beams of light towards the ponies below. Princess Melody also cast a shield to counter Nightmare Moon's attack. Silver Shield attacked while dodging Nightmare Moon's strikes. Starlight Glimmer prepared to charge up for a fatal blow against Nightmare Moon. The entire hall turned into a battlefield. The remaining unicorns couldn't join their fight and could only silently pray for these heroic ponies in front. Nightmare Moon and Princess Melody exchanged attacks above the royal hall, while Morningstar and Moondance focused on distracting Nightmare Moon's attention. Silver Shield primarily defended, providing shields for the other ponies to prevent them from being ambushed. Nightmare Moon appeared increasingly agitated. She hadn't expected these ponies to cooperate so well, and she felt a subtle threat looming over her. At this moment, the starlight was fully charged, and a significantly wider magical beam shot towards Nightmare Moon. She cast a 4-layer shield spell to block the beam. After breaking through 2 layers of the shield, the starlight's momentum was insufficient, forcing it to temporarily halt and prepare for another attack. At this time, Morningstar planned to experiment with the knowledge he had just learned and apply it in battle. Morningstar used dark magic particles to release an attack spell, and upon seeing the beam coming, Nightmare Moon once again cast a 4-layer shield spell. This time, it successfully broke through 3 layers of the shield, and then Morningstar stopped the attack, having exhausted the magic particles he had previously transformed and needing to convert them again. Last time, I transformed about 30% of the magic particles and felt nothing. This time, let's see how 40% performs. Morningstar began to quickly convert magic particles while running and rapidly releasing beams with a faster attack frequency to disrupt Nightmare Moon. It seems you all have this little power. Nightmare Moon smiled again. This time, a large amount of black mist surged from her black body. Her eyes turned crimson, and circles resembling magical arrays appeared beside her, launching attack spells simultaneously with her horns. Seeing this, Morningstar quickly teleported to Moondance's side and deployed 2 layers of shield armor, while Silvershine teleported in front of Princess Melody to defend. Starlight managed to dodge the sudden attack. Starlight was surprised. She herself was a diligent little pony who had not put down her study and practice of magic since childhood. Especially after daylight left, she became increasingly reclusive, spending every day either studying magic or practicing in the endless forest. Until that day when she was practicing, a dozen nightmares suddenly jumped out, trying to control them. Under Starlight's resistance, the nightmares failed, and the surrounding ponies all recognized Starlight as their leader, hoping she could protect everyone. But under the subsequent onslaught, Starlight could only lead the ponies to lie low, waiting for a nationwide uprising. And their base was Starlight Town. Be careful, she now has the enhancement of dark magic particles, significantly increasing her power. I'll hold her off, you all act as you see fit. Morningstar once again converted magic particles to 50% of his body's capacity, teleported to a high altitude, and released a charged attack with his horn. This time, Nightmare Moon did not control it directly. She teleported behind Morningstar and struck him down to the ground with a heavy blow. Morningstar used levitation magic to avoid becoming a pony pancake. It seems you all aren't that impressive after all. It's time to thoroughly defeat you. Ha! Morningstar noticed that Nightmare Moon was becoming increasingly formidable. He didn't know how many dark magic particles she had converted and could only continue to convert to stall her. Now, Morningstar retreated behind them and said loudly, Please give me a minute to prepare. I need to set up a powerful spell. During this time, I leave it to you." The remaining 4 ponies nodded in agreement and immediately charged towards Nightmare Moon to start a cosmic battle. Morningstar began using rapid circulation to absorb magic particles while compressing them and converting them into dark magic particles, simultaneously starting to charge. Seeing dark energy also emanating from Morningstar, Nightmare Moon paused for a moment. "Hey, why are you stunned? Try this." Starlight conjured a magic bow and arrow, shooting several arrows at her. At the same time, Moondance and Silvershine Princess Melody charged their shots together towards Nightmare Moon. She knew this was the dark conversion method of magic particles, but she did not expect that a pony could convert enough magic particles to leak dark energy and still remain sane. Nightmare Moon was also quickly converting magic particles, preparing to wipe out Morningstar in one blow. At this moment, she was truly annoyed. "Get out of my way, you ponies blocking my path." Nightmare Moon's horn began to darken as she summoned several black crystal pillars, isolating the 4 ponies from the unicorns behind them. The black crystal pillars separated her and Morningstar, resembling the Roman Colosseum. Then Nightmare Moon flew straight towards Morningstar, and her horn began to emit dark magical fluctuations. "No, I must block her." Morningstar quickly converted all the magic particles in his body, and at this point, his body also released waves of black mist as he launched his strongest attack at Nightmare Moon. Just like in the previous duel between the two, they clashed again. But would the result be different this time? No. 2 streams of pitch-black magic were competing against each other, but the boundary was slowly moving towards Morningstar. His magic energy reserves were simply incomparable to those of the celestial unicorn. Reluctantly, Morningstar once again rapidly absorbed magic particles, even though this would cause him irreversible damage. If he couldn't hold her off, the world would be destroyed again. He didn't want to die once more, and he dared not gamble on how many times fate would grant him such abilities. He had to keep going, allowing this timeline to continue. Blood began to seep from Morningstar's skin as he fully absorbed magic particles, channeling all his power into his horn. The 2 forces clashed for a full minute. Morningstar was knocked away, and the surrounding black crystal pillars shattered under the onslaught of the ponies. Moondance was the first to see Morningstar's tragic state, blood seeping from him, dyeing his blue fur dark red. "Morningstar." Moondance teleported to his side, lifting him and retreating. "Morningstar, how are you? Wake up. Wake up, Morningstar." At this moment, Morningstar found himself in a dark space, with only himself and a mirror reflecting his face. Confused about where this place was, he walked around and found he couldn't escape, so he took a deep breath and walked towards the mirror. Morningstar looked at himself, and his movements mirrored his own without any difference. At that moment, a black light cluster transformed into Morningstar's likeness and appeared in the mirror, startling him. He staggered back, and then the black Morningstar in the mirror spoke. "Oh, it seems you can't hold on anymore. How pitiful. No matter how hard you try, you still can't stop Nightmare Moon. So what? We've held her off for so long. We can definitely find the harmony element. Is that so? Would you like to see how things develop next?" The black Morningstar made way, and the mirror began to transform the scene. In the mirror, the outcome was that they ultimately failed and were forever banished by Nightmare Moon. Although Morningstar couldn't believe it, if they were ultimately banished, then Equestria would never recover. So how about a bet? Let us see if that's just your wishful thinking. Moreover, I must say, if you don't accept my offer, your body won't be able to withstand seeing the final outcome. Are you sure you don't want to accept? The black Morningstar smiled, as if what Morningstar thought was also what he thought. Morningstar struggled for a moment before speaking. "I choose not to accept you." "What?" The black Morningstar found it unbelievable. "I know that if I accept you, I will definitely regret it. I would rather die than become a soulless zombie. You should just give up on that idea." This was Morningstar's first time facing his dark self, and he was certain this was the result of using too many dark magic particles, but he would rather die than be controlled. "It seems I need to exert some effort. This is really absurd." "What?" This time, it was Morningstar who was stunned. The mirror shattered, and the black Morningstar transformed into black mist, enveloping Morningstar. Morningstar felt a variety of pessimistic emotions, despair, pain, and sorrow. He watched as more and more black mist wrapped around him, feeling uncomfortable as if he were being roasted in a furnace of true fire. Morningstar struggled against the invasion of the dark energy with magic and launched an attack on the black Morningstar. The black Morningstar tilted its head slightly, narrowly avoiding the blow. It seemed we were about to have a cowboy-style showdown. The black Morningstar appeared poised and confident. "Humph. I don't believe you can defeat me. Let us see about that." The black Morningstar initiated the attack first. As Morningstar fainted, Moondance took on the responsibility of protecting her, while the other 3 ponies continued to prevent Nightmare Moon from pursuing 6. However, under the magical arrays on either side of Nightmare Moon and her own attacks, the ponies were all knocked against the wall and lost consciousness. Nightmare Moon glanced at Morningstar, knowing he was as fragile as a candle in the wind and wouldn't last long, so she decided not to bother with him. It's infuriating that you wasted 2 or 3 minutes of my time. Without saying a word, Nightmare Moon released a beam of black magic into the sky, crashing into the shield barrier. The barrier cracked under the strain, and after holding for a few seconds, it shattered. Nightmare Moon transformed into black smoke and drifted away to pursue 6. Chapter 22. 6 retrieves the elements of harmony but to no avail. Nightmare Moon is confident of victory and enjoys the show. Where will Nightmare Moon hide the elements of harmony? After receiving Morningstar's urgent command, Twilight Sparkle led 5 out without hesitation to search for the elements of harmony. Meanwhile, 6 were wandering around Canterlot Castle, opening every room in a haphazard search for the elements of harmony. Oh, sisters, we can't search aimlessly like this. We need to make the most of our time. Applejack shouted. Let us head to the royal vault. That big bad guy must have hidden the elements of harmony there. Twilight, you learned about its location from Princess Celestia, right? Twilight Sparkle nodded. She and Princess Celestia had nearly traversed every corner of Canterlot Castle, so she knew where the royal vault was. The days she spent learning with Princess Celestia were wonderful. But everything changed when Celestia sent her to Ponyville to oversee the preparations for the summer celebration and to make some friends. As they rushed towards the royal vault, Pinkie Pie suddenly had a bright idea and pushed open a door. Hey, this seems to be where Nightmare Moon lives. Look how big it is. Oh, I think I see something good. Pinkie Pie bounced in. Twilight Sparkle and the others didn't notice Pinkie Pie's disappearance and continued straight to the royal vault. Twilight Sparkle silently prayed to Princess Celestia, hoping that Nightmare Moon had hidden the elements of harmony inside. Otherwise, they would be in trouble. Twilight Sparkle opened the thick double doors of the royal vault and, along with her sisters, began searching for the elements of harmony. However, after searching left and right in the royal vault, unfortunately, it seemed that Nightmare Moon had anticipated something and had not placed the elements of harmony there. Oh, Celestia above, we need to hurry to the next place to find the elements of harmony. We can't let the efforts of the rebellion go to waste. Rainbow Dash urged. Ha! The 5 ponies turned to look at the entrance of the vault, where Nightmare Moon stood, gazing at them. She wanted to laugh out loud because she believed she had already won. The leader of the rebellion had been defeated by her, and the remaining ponies were no match for her. If she could defeat these 5 ponies, she could implement Eternal Night forever. I'll hold her off. You all run. Twilight Sparkle stepped in front of them, preparing to confront Nightmare Moon head-on. Oh, the defeated opponent dares to challenge me again. It seems my lesson wasn't enough for you. Nightmare Moon looked at the group of ponies with amusement, her confidence growing. Do you think this time will be any different? Without the elements of harmony, what can you use to fight me? Hey, everyone. Guess what I found in Nightmare Moon's room? It's the elements of harmony. 5 big orbs are just under the pillow in that bedroom. She walked past Nightmare Moon while speaking to Twilight Sparkle and the others. At that moment, Nightmare Moon was completely ignored. She was momentarily stunned when Pinkie Pie approached Twilight and the others, then flew into a rage. She couldn't believe that a pony could actually find the elements of harmony. That detestable pink pony actually ignored the great Queen of Night. Nightmare Moon immediately unleashed a dark magic array, shooting a sharp arrow towards Pinkie Pie. Watch out! Twilight Sparkle reacted quickly, teleporting in front of Pinkie Pie and casting 4 layers of shields to block the speeding black arrow. After piercing through 3 layers of crimson shields, it was finally stopped. Give it to me. Nightmare Moon didn't expect the purple pony in front of her to block her attack. During their first encounter, the Nightmares had captured 6 all at once, so she had miscalculated their combat power, and now she was anxious. There are only 5 elements of harmony here. I remember the book said that when 5 elements are gathered, it only takes a spark for the 6th element to reappear. But what exactly is that spark? Twilight Sparkle pondered in confusion. She tried to use an activating spell, and the 5 elements of harmony slowly rose under her magical aura. At that moment, Nightmare Moon conjured 3 magic arrays to unleash attack magic alongside her. Since you want to use the elements of harmony against me, I'll destroy them completely. The dark magic accurately struck the elements of harmony. The immense impact shattered the floor of the royal vault, and the shockwave sent 6 flying. Twilight Sparkle reacted quickly, using magic to hold them back to prevent them from crashing to the ground. However, under the attack of the dark magic, the elements of harmony seemed unable to withstand such power and shattered into pieces. No, Twilight Sparkle despaired upon seeing the elements of harmony completely destroyed. Nightmare Moon flew in front of them, ready to celebrate her impending victory without any surprises. So, little ponies, do you still believe you can defeat me now? Run, sisters. I'll hold her off. Twilight Sparkle, resolute, decided to stall Nightmare Moon. Oh, come on, Twilight. You expect me to run away? That's impossible. Rainbow Dash flew to Twilight Sparkle's side and spoke first. Yes, we want to leave you behind and run away. Applejack adjusted her cowboy hat, took out a lasso, and focused on Nightmare Moon. Dear, although we are scared, we will definitely not abandon you. Rarity fixed her hair and stood in line with them. Indeed, Twilight, I may be scared, but we will fight side by side together. Fluttershy echoed. Oh, let us fight. The final showdown. Pinkie Pie's eyes were filled with joy and ease, not fear at all. Seeing her friends stand firm with her, Twilight Sparkle was deeply moved. At that moment, she suddenly remembered what they had experienced a month ago in the Everfree Forest with the rebellion, and an idea popped into her mind. A spark shone in her eyes. I know, she exclaimed excitedly. This made Five curious about what she was about to say. Oh, do you have any last words to say, my dear defeated opponents? In Nightmare Moon's eyes, these little ponies still thought they could make a final stand, and the road to success was now infinitely wide. So she felt confident of victory, curious to hear what they would say before their imminent doom. Nightmare Moon confidently prepared to listen to what Twilight Sparkle planned to say, ready to mercilessly mock her.